Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Roro from Twitter, one of my Twitter mutuals, and I actually wanted to throw this out there. If you're on Twitter and you come across my stuff, talk to me. I always need, as I say in the housekeeping, always need new volunteer dreamers. So I'm just a guy talking to people from the internet. So that means you. We're going to introduce our friend a bit further about housekeeping style. Please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. You can get a t-shirt, coffee mug. Always take donations for whiskey for video games. 14 currently available books of historical dream literature. The most recent one, I should flash it up on the screen, maybe right here. Maybe I'll try and put it on the screen when I edit this. Dreams in Homer and Greek tragedy, going back to the Odyssey and the Iliad, full of lots of ancient Greek and translations, serious, 350 something footnotes in a 230 page book. Really put a lot of work into this. That's enough self-aggrandizing housekeeping on me, on my part. Back to Roro. I never know how to do this thing when someone isn't hawking anything. I mean, you have a website, you get your Twitter handle, but I understand you are a psych graduate student. We could start there and kind of say a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I'm a PhD student in psychology. Prior to starting my program, I did counseling, and so I have 8 years experience doing counseling, even though I'm not in a clinical psychology program. 5 of those years were working with mental health and addiction, and then 3 or so of those years were working with senior citizens and disabled people who spoke English and Spanish, and helping them understand insurance like Medicare and Medicaid. So that's kind of my background.
Very important. Yeah. And we have a very similar background. I'm also, from the field of psychology. So I got my bachelor's and then went into emergency psychiatric care for 20 years and somehow ended up being a wizard on the internet, interpreting dreams. But I take that, very seriously. I don't know. You may have never heard my description of why do I call myself a wizard? Number one, it's absurd, and I think it's hilarious. I grew out the hair, I got the beard, get Gandalf style. But I think it's because what I do is dealing with metaphors and symbolism and things like that. And the iconic symbology of a wizard is the elder with knowledge from a long life who then speaks magic words and tells people, communicates that wisdom, helps people see themselves more clearly, looking within, very much psychology style. Also, in a way, the ability to see the future, because you've seen a lot of things before. You've observed cause and effect. If you do that, it's not going to work out well for you. Hey, why don't you try this instead? I know, trust me, it works. That's all wizardry, in my opinion. So it's a part absurd and part absolutely serious. A little explanation for folks.
Yeah, no, that symbolism is interesting because it appears all over the place. Like the wise old man wizard sort of thing. It's like Zeus is kind of like that, but so is Santa Claus and Gandalf and the guy from Harry Potter whose name I can't think of at the moment.
Dumbledore. Yeah.
Dumbledore. They're all kind of the same kind of character.
And people kind of forget that, Santa Claus is very much a kind of wizardly figure. He's the spirit of generosity in that sense of he's got so much to give. And it's from this long, supernaturally long life in his sense, where that's his entire reason for existing is
and he's got a pointy hat. He's got that pointy hat thing going on. So
and the chubby cheeks and the belly that shakes like a bowl full of jelly. So
he's got it all.
I have to work on that. I had that all along. So, if people want to find you, there is Ryan. Did you want me to give out your Twitter handle?
Yeah, you can.
We spoke about that. So
you can give out my Twitter handle and my website.
And the website. That's right. It's at Tuttle Ryan David on Twitter, and it's RyanDavidTuttle.com. If you want to find what he's up to and follow him and all kinds of interesting conversations and whatnot. So this is, speaking of Twitter in general, I follow a lot of people I disagree with, and disagreement or agreement or ideological conformity, similarity is not what I'm there for. I'm there for good ideas. So I follow people that I think are insightful. And that includes a lot of folks that disagree with me about 80, 90% of everything else. But man, they said something that kind of insight that gets a follow right there. And then they may never say anything I agree with again, but at least I know they're thinking about the world and trying to contribute. So that's how I end up following people. I recently switched my Twitter timeline to current, recent tweets, and there's a way to, it's aggregated or algorithmized.
Yeah, it's like the algorithm.
Yeah, they
I don't know, but I know what you're talking
curate.
about.
They curate it for you, and they try and get it right to the best of what they think you're interested in. But that's why I might have missed. I miss all kinds of tweets now, because it's just whenever I look, whoever posted in the last half an hour, day, they get it first. I no longer start seeing tweets that are, a week old that got a bunch of traction, and now they're back in my timeline again. So anyway, tangent.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a double-edged sword, the two options you have, because otherwise you may not see somebody's tweets at all.
Yeah. That's what I found too. Is like, there were people I wasn't seeing anymore. I'm like, whatever happened to that guy? Oh, he's still there. It just, I never get shown it. So I don't know, we'll see with the whole Elon thing. I think he's still going to buy it. That's my prediction. You can call it for what it is. I
don't know.
Skeptical. I think he's playing the long game. I think he's real smart. That guy. I mean, Mensa level stuff that, I think he's got a plan. I don't know. I was blowing smoke.
We'll see what happens.
My gut feeling. Yeah. We'll see. And hopefully
I don't know.
it changes for the better.
I don't know what any of it means, but I'm kind of just interested and excited to see what happens. Like, there's just a lot of drama. It's interesting.
If nothing else, it's a fascinating process. I mean, what did he just repost the other day? It's like, the 4-panel thing where he
posted laughing. The meme. Yeah.
He's a memer, and memes are interesting too. I mean, there's this whole, the way I like to describe memes to, say, boomers or folks that are like, what are you talking about? The funny pictures on the internet? Technically, yes, but not a bad description. But there's that Star Trek episode, Next Generation, Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra. I don't know if that Picard gets beamed down to the planet with the other alien captain. They can't communicate. They don't speak the same language. He tries to offer him a knife, and Picard's like, nope, I'm not fighting you. And over the course of it, they realize they're supposed to come together to fight a common enemy and forge this relationship between their species. It's, because the universal translator didn't know the dialect, didn't know how they were trying to communicate. It was given us English words, so to speak, but they spoke in memes. They, it would be like Achilles and Hector at Troy would be a meme that we would say, and it would be cultural knowledge that those two had a specific type of interaction at a specific place at a specific time. And here's the idea I'm trying to communicate for that. We use that with our, colloquialisms all the time. We were talking about Mary Had a Little
Idioms. Idioms is a thing too, which are interesting, where the original, like, the reason why we say it doesn't make sense, or like we lost the original reason why we say it, but we keep saying it anyways. So there's a bunch of, like, someone kicking the bucket. Like, we know that means that somebody died, but like, why does it mean someone died?
No, for sure. And I love those two. Idioms is the right word. That's the word. I always have trouble finding the right word. I have been obsessed with that. And actually, that's how I find a lot of my episode titles. I look for the symbology in whatever dream we're talking about. And I go and I try and find expressions people are going to understand. Like the one that came out last week is dressed for success. And that has its own meaning and different layers of meaning and meaning in different contexts, but it spoke specifically to the dream, and it's a common phrase people recognize. Okay, I've heard that before. I kind of know what it means. There was another episode I got pulled out the idiom water under the bridge, because her dream was specifically there was a bridge at the bottom of a swimming pool and she got stuck under it. So literally she was stuck in the water under the bridge, which anyway, that's the idea. Just another tangent, because balls to the wall. Have you heard where that one comes from?
I have.
Yeah.
I don't know where it came from, but I've heard of it.
Well, yeah, for sure. So, once I start describing, you'll go, so there's two things to understand: that the instrument panel in the early jet fighters it's called the wall. And there's a knob on your throttle. And the knob is in the shape of a ball. So when you're going to go balls to the wall, you take that throttle and slam it all the way forward into the instrument panel.
That is not the ball that was right? Not what I thought it was talking about.
I know it does. It does suggest other alternatives.
That's interesting. Very interesting.
One of my favorites too. And if you'd asked me 20 minutes ago, I wouldn't have been able to pull this out of my head, but cold enough to freeze the balls off a brass monkey. Have you heard that one before?
I don't know that I've heard that one, but I've heard variations of it, I think. Yeah. I think I've heard a variation of it.
So, very briefly, once upon a time, we had sailing ships, the old schooners with the mast and the sails and everything, and they had cannons. And to keep the cannonballs from rolling all over the deck, they had the equivalent of metal, like when you're doing Easter eggs, you put them in the little cradle so they don't roll all over the table. And so what they would do is they would put this uh, plate with a bunch of divots in it that would hold the cannonballs so you could stack them up into a pyramid. So when the ship was tilting, the cannonballs wouldn't roll all over. And those plates with the divots were called, they were made of brass, and they were called a brass monkey. Well, sometimes on the ocean, late into the night and in cold weather, brass shrinks and the cannonballs would fall out of their cradles and roll all over the deck. So it would literally be cold enough to freeze the cannonballs off the metal brass monkey stand that they sat on. There's like a literal physical.
Yeah, I never heard of that one
reference.
Either.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, there's the other, dead as a doornail and kick the bucket. These are more common ones, but I always like that phrase. I'm a big fan of like interesting phrases. I'm sweating like crazy. It's going to be 95 degrees here in Portland, Oregon. Oh boy. Oh, that's okay.
Oh man, yeah. I don't know how hot it is here. It's not that hot though.
Whoop. Just knocked my earphone out. But probably, unless you have more interesting things to tell me, I'll listen to your stories too. I'm not trying to be the only one to talk, but we can jump into
I got my dream.
I know, yeah.
My dream does involve some snow, so maybe that'll help cool you down.
Right? Definitely. I'll get into that mindset. I'm in the snow. What do we got here? Let's see, 12 minutes and 12 seconds. Okay, so as per my usual process, I'm going to shut up and listen. Our friend's going to tell us his dream beginning to end, then we're going to go back through it and see if we can put something together. So I'm ready when you are.
So you want me to just tell you the whole story?
Yeah, beginning to end, whatever you can remember, and we'll go from there.
And I know I mentioned this earlier before we recorded, but I guess so that everyone else knows it too, that I did take some notes. So I'm like looking to the side. It's because I have some notes. And when I originally had the dream, I had woken up in the middle of the night or whenever I woke up, and I recorded it because I knew you were looking for dreams. And so I woke up and I was like, oh, I got to record this one. This is a good one. And I recorded it. And then I took some notes after listening to the recording right now so that I'd have just more fresh in my mind.
Yeah, taking notes, always recommended. Write it down. You will forget if you don't capture it in some way to stimulate that memory. So audio, written notes, anything, any method you want to use is brilliant. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So the earliest memory in this dream I have is I'm in the car with my uncle and cousin, who I haven't seen either of them in years. And I believe that I'm an adult, and I'm telling my uncle about how I remembered that he used to like to fish, and how I remembered him being upset after they made a rule that you couldn't fish close to shore. He did like to fish. The shore and the rules, I don't know that that's a real thing or not, but it was part of my dream. And then we drive up to this bridge, and my mother starts to get agitated, and she's like, oh, there's a bridge. So do you want me to add commentary as I go on the dream, or do you want me to just tell the story of the dream without any extra commentary?
Let's do just the dream first, and then we're going to get immediately into the commentary. Yeah.
All right, so my mother sees the bridge. She gets agitated, and she's like, oh, there's a bridge coming up. There's a bridge coming up. I kind of examine the bridge just from the car. I'm looking at it. And at first I think, well, maybe it's one of those bridges that opens in the middle to allow boats to go through. But then as we get closer, I realize that it's not, and it's just a really long bridge. So we start crossing this bridge, and we're like moving from the two lanes, kind of left to right. And I feel kind of anxious about being on this bridge. And I don't like that we're kind of close to the edge of the side of the bridge. And then this bridge is kind of unusual in that it's very long. It's also very lumpy. And so it's not smooth asphalt. It's like maybe a wooden bridge, but it's got a lot of lumps in it. And it's also at sea level. So it's not a bridge that's suspended. You're not like 100 feet up in the air. Like you're at the same level as the water. But it's not floating. It's solid, but it is at the same level as the water. And so as we're driving across, it's snowing. It's like sleeting or something like that. And there's slush developing. So like these little lumps are developing into puddles of slush. And we're kind of making our way across the bridge, again, kind of going side to side, changing lanes for some reason. And it's giving me anxiety when we're changing because it's snowy and icy out. And then I get out of the car at some point. I don't know why. and I fall into a puddle of slushy, icy water. And then I try to get back into the car, and I have trouble because the slush has gotten so high that I can't open the car door. And the people in the car said, well, why don't we just finish driving off of the bridge? And then once we get off of the bridge, then you can get back in the car. But I tell them, no, I don't want to do that. And then I just kind of squeeze my way into the car anyways, even though the slush is really high. Then we arrive at a restaurant, and there are a bunch of people there, and my family, like my parents are there. And I become aware that people are dressed better than me at this restaurant. It's a slightly more fancy restaurant, and I feel like I'm not dressed appropriately or dressed fancy enough for the restaurant. So we are walking to our where did I go? We're walking to our table, and for some reason I see Link and Rhett from Good Mythical Morning eating together at a table at the restaurant. And it's just two of them at their own table. And then we get to our table, and I get the feeling that the group of people we are with is people from my church. But I don't like recognize anyone or remember anyone in particular other than my parents. And there's either two tables there, or there's just one very large table. And I decide to go sit with these other people that I don't really know. There's three of them. One of them is a girl that seems kind of cute, and I think, oh, like it'd just be interesting to like get to know these people. And so I sit with them. And I think at the beginning it seems like it's one big table, but then once I sit with them, I realize that it's two separate tables or something like that. And then once I sit with them, I realize they're actually not with our group at all. I just sat at someone else's table. And so I make a joke. I don't know what the joke was, but I make a joke and everyone laughs. And then I get up, and then the waitress or the waiter brings me to sit at my own table. And so this table is far away from everybody else, and it feels like I'm in some sort of very sterile institutional hospital type room, almost at like a school desk eating or something. And in this room with me is so I'm eating at the table by myself in this semi-sterile hospital room, and on the left is this sort of receptacle. It's sort of this like triangular receptacle that you might put donations in, almost like if you go through a McDonald's drive-through, there'll be this sort of triangular pocket that you can put money in, kind of like one of those, but it's completely clear, and it's filled with condoms. This is the part that Freud would probably be interested in. So, but very unusual condoms, and so that they're unwrapped, and they look like orange latex balloons. So they just look like, I mean, in my dream, in my brain, I know that they're condoms, but they look completely like orange latex balloons that have a little clear window on them. I don't know why, but there's a little clear window on them. And so I'm eating, and I think I see those there, and I'm like, well, that's kind of gross that there's all these condoms here. Like, why are they here? I'm at a restaurant. Why are they all open? And then there's a TV or a radio playing, and there's like state propaganda playing over it, and it's like telling me about pregnancy statistics. Kind of like now, like in North Korea, they have radios that are playing, or I think I've heard that, where they're just radios playing constantly. So it's like that. There's like this background sort of propaganda playing about pregnancy statistics. So I finish eating, and I go back to the table of my parents, and Link from Good Mythical Morning is sitting next to my parents and eating. And I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, what is going on in this place? And so I tell him that my parents don't even know who he is. Like what's going on? And then the people that I sat with originally, who weren't part of our party, they also want to sit next to my parents, and they're upset that Link from Good Mythical Morning is there. I don't know why. And then the next part of my dream, I'm watching a cooking show or something, and so there's a piece of raw chicken, but the chicken looks like an artisanal loaf of bread that has been sliced. So not like a white Wonder Bread loaf, but this like fancy artisanal loaf of bread. And the person who's talking about this piece of chicken that looks like a loaf of bread is seasoning it with everything bagel seasoning. And so they're kind of coating it like it's a dry rub, but it's everything bagel seasoning. And they're talking about the seasoning, and they're like, yeah, you got to put the seasoning on like this, and you need to let it swelt. I don't know if swelting is an actual cooking term or if it's just something that I've made up, but whoever it is says the chicken needs to swelt for a little bit with this everything bagel seasoning. And then, if I remember correctly, it kind of like cooks before us, like we're watching it cook, but only half of it cooks as part of this demonstration. And I'm really kind of in the dream, I'm thinking it's really strange that only half of it cooked. And I'm kind of mystified by how they got it to cook. How did they get half of this to cook without the other half? Because they're cooking it in some sort of oven. And that was the end of my dream. The end.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was only 3 going on the 4th page. Not so bad. Very vivid. So many details. That's honestly amazing. And you never know what you're going to get. Like I've had straight up an hour-long episode from a 30-second description that just seemed like I went here, I did this, and then that. What do you make of it? Bam. Well, this sounds a lot more to me like the other episode I had with Funk God, Laura. That one went 4.5 hours. I don't know if you have that kind of time. We'll try and tighten it up for you.
Okay. All right.
But basically,
I probably have details that I didn't even mention also.
And you know what, like I mentioned, we were talking just in DMs is there's going to be more. There's going to be more than you even know. I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to go, you know what? Wait a minute. This also happened right there. And bam, we got something. I haven't had a single interview where that didn't happen. So,
okay.
All right. That is literally step 1. Just shut up and listen. So if you ever wanted to get into this kind of thing or help a friend, you can do this with your friends. Just sit down and talk it through. Use my method such as it is. Listen, take notes. It helps me. Some people have a better memory. Mine is crap. Step 2, we go through it again. We begin at the beginning, and for 2 reasons. 1, to help put you back in the dream. Also to put me back in the dream. And then in that process to get those little additions that pop up while we're looking at this thing from different angles. It seems like there were 3 distinct chapters, so to speak. So you're on the bridge, you're in the restaurant, and you're watching the cooking show. So we'll kind of take each one of those in order, one at a time, and try and connect them all together. Very interesting beginning. Well, it's always interesting. I'll say that to everybody. It's very interesting. I am interested. You're in a car, a car which is known to you, a car from actual life, your dad's old car from way back when, or
no awareness of that.
Okay. Any other specifics about the car? I mean, it seems it's big enough to hold your family.
A 4-door car. It's a 4-door car.
4-door, definitely not a little coupe. You're not on a motorcycle. And you're with your uncle and your cousin.
Yep.
And your parents, or no awareness of them at that point?
At that point, no awareness of them. But my mother is in the car at one point because she's scared of the bridge.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it may be relevant. Who knows? And probably is that we move through these dreams in a way that's like, we conceptualize one type of thing and the characters that need to communicate that are there. So doesn't need to be any consistency. Your mom's in the car. She's not in the car. She wasn't relevant to whatever that was communicating at that point. So did you used to go fishing with your uncle? Did he teach you to fish or?
No.
But you knew that was something he was into in real life or no?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's something he was into.
And this, so you're both your real life uncle and cousin that you haven't seen in a while, or?
I don't know if my cousin was into fishing or not. I think the reason why my uncle and my cousin popped up in my dream was because someone had shared a picture of him when he was young on Facebook. Gotcha. And so I think that's why he was triggered into the dream somehow. And then I'm also just aware that he likes fishing. And he would go fishing a lot, and so that my brain, I think, just made those connections and put it in my dream is what I think.
For sure.
I don't know.
No, yeah, then that's very likely. And sometimes it's like you begin with a specific idea, hey, I haven't seen my cousin in a while. That picture reminded me, and that reminds me I have other extended family,
Yeah.
like an uncle. Oh,
Yeah.
and I remember one of the details about him that comes to mind. He used to like to fish, but then your brain goes to the just to clarify, if you know, the cousin and uncle, was it them from now as you imagine they would be, or a
I
memory of your uncle when he was younger from when you were younger?
I believe that they were adults. I mean, again, I haven't seen them in years, so
Sure.
I don't even know what he looks like currently, you know, because it's probably been 15, 20 years, maybe. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen him.
Fair enough.
So, but we are adults, and I'm talking about my memory of him in the car. So,
Okay. So what you're discussing with him is a new rule that bans fishing on the shoreline, and this is relevant
I'm
to him.
discussing my memory of this happening.
Okay, gotcha. Good to know.
My memory. I'm just like, oh, I'm in the car, and I'm just like, oh, I just remember this rule happening and him being upset about the rule, and I'm like telling him I remember this, which that's not a real thing I remember.
Gotcha. Yeah. So your brain's introducing, you're communicating to someone close. You got family relationship, but it's not immediate nuclear family. It's extended family. There's a lot of group interaction, group dynamics, relationship dynamics going on with groups of people at tables. You got your parents,
Sure.
you got your uncles. So there's levels of remove all the way out to parasocial relationships, maybe with online personalities where they're in your awareness and you see their life, but there's not this. So there's degrees of connection. Very interesting things going on.
Yeah.
This is where my brain starts going.
We'll talk about them when we get to them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you're gonna have to tell me who they are. I don't think I've heard that
Okay.
those folks before. Okay, so you're in the car and you're talking to your cousin. You're reminding them of something in the past that was unpleasant to them. Reminding them of something they didn't like from the past. Bringing it up again. Did you have any sense of why that was something you needed to communicate at the time? Was there any emotional content connected to it?
No.
Is it any chance it was like just awkwardly filling space? Like, I don't know what else to talk to about. I remember you used to go fishing.
Yeah, I think it's more like that. Maybe more like that. But yeah, I have no other. I don't have any emotional. I don't have any I don't have any memory of the dream having some sort of emotional connection there or anything. It was just like, oh yeah, like maybe reminiscing sort of vibe, maybe. But again, not real events. I don't remember him being upset. I don't remember any rules, and I don't remember him being upset about any rules. So,
as far as I know, it's not illegal to fish
near the shore,
off the shoreline of anywhere, unless private property or whatever.
Yeah, it's a little bit it's a little bit of a strange rule, but
it is. And this one definitely going on the back burner, but I'd like to spend at least a little bit of time establishing, where did the dream start? What might be the through line from that? So already we've got, as I was saying, that idea of relationships from, once removed family in a way. And it's communicating something. It's memory. It's a reminiscence of historical events. It's maybe reconnecting after a gap of knowing people. That might be something to it. It's like you don't know them today, so you would reference something. Hey, I remember when.
Yeah.
Is it uniquely important, the content of it? Maybe to the rest of the dream. But that's the way I look at it. What is the nature of the thing you're communicating to them, and why would you think that was important to say to yourself in the dream? Like, okay, imagine you're telling this uncle and cousin you haven't seen a very specific type of thing, and then the next thing that happens in the dream is you're approaching a bridge that presents some kind of a threat. So the connection would be something about setting that scene led to the next idea of, well, now imagine you're going to have to confront something. And do you remember anything about the scenery you're driving through to get to the bridge?
No, just the bridge.
And it wasn't snowing at that time, to your knowledge?
No, I don't recall.
Okay.
That it was snowing.
Nothing about, forest, plains, seashore.
Mm-mm.
Okay. No
nothing.
external. So the first external
is seeing the
scenery.
bridge.
So the first scene is in car.
Yeah.
Second scene, car approaching bridge. Pulling back a little bit. Um, any idea of the distance and the speed you were going? I mean, yeah, fair
No.
enough. Yeah,
No.
I rattle all kinds of
I
doorknobs. Don't
I
quote
will
me.
I will say
Yeah.
that the connection there might be that kind of comes to my mind is I believe my uncle used to go fishing on the Cape Cod.
Okay.
And there's a bridge that you have to cross when you go to the Cape. And my mother doesn't like crossing the bridge. So
Yeah.
we're probably crossing the bridge to go to the Cape is what that's probably where that connection is from.
Fair enough. No, yeah, that's great. You're in, and that just occurred to you in explaining it to me. So, okay, I remember where my uncle used to go fishing, so this
Yeah.
would be relevant. And you've got the iconic representation from your actual physical life of your mom doesn't like that bridge, so you bring her into the dream to say, we're going to be crossing the kind of bridge that I don't like. This, and maybe not even, it doesn't even have to be that specific bridge.
She doesn't like any bridge. She doesn't like any bridges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, without saying anything specific, we start getting into, the fact that your mother, how do I say this? Your mother has a very real life fear of bridges. When you think of bridges and people being afraid of them, your mother's, okay, that's how I conceive of it, her level of anxiety.
Yeah.
And there's a bridge coming. So this may be, if we go metaphorically, which we almost always do, but just throwing it out there, the idea of there is, say, generically a difficulty or threat coming that presents the kind of anxiety that would be as if it was your mother approaching a bridge she didn't want to cross, that was going to freak her out and trigger this thing. So think along those lines, possibly. Yeah. It's it's not impossible, but nor necessarily rare, but very often, like, it's not a bridge. It's whatever a bridge means to you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, symbolically a bridge.
Yeah, symbolic bridge. Yep. Metaphorically speaking. What did I write here? Speculate. Wow, I wrote the number 3, not an S. What am I doing? Nobody can read my chicken scratch. I could hand over these notes to someone. They'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" It's my own secret code. I can barely read it. Do you remember? I wrote down, quote, "bridge coming!" exclamation point. Did she verbalize that? She said a bridge is coming, or?
I have written down there's a bridge in quotation marks, and I think in the audio recording I took was my mom was just pointing out there's a bridge, being like excited, but not excited in a good way, just excited in an agitated way. There's a bridge.
So it's definitely the icon of your mother recognizing an object of anxiety, calling your attention to it. Look, there's a bridge. So that I think that is important. And maybe not the specific words, but it wasn't just like, oh, a bridge. It's like there's a bridge.
And be anxious.
Yeah. There is something absolutely coming. You're gonna have to deal with it as worthy of having an emotional response to it. And her pointing it out. Do you remember the moment you saw it, or
same? I think it was the same time.
About the same time. And when you looked at it, did it have a particular visual appearance from that angle of approaching it in the car? Because you said you speculated it was a drawbridge.
I think at first I was thinking, is this a drawbridge? But no, it was just like it's a flat, completely flat bridge, or almost completely flat bridge. It is, and I think also, like, as the dream progresses, like my visual of the bridge also changes a little bit sometimes.
Sure.
Because at one point, so viewing it more broadly, it's very flat. As in, it's not this like huge arching bridge. It doesn't have any like suspension wires or anything like that. It's like flat bridge with like planks of wood going across, sort of deal almost, but very lumpy. And as we're crossing it, I'm having anxiety because we're getting close to the edge, and there's nothing at the edge of it. It's just water right there. But then as we are driving it, it does feel like, even though we're getting close to the edge and then we're getting back towards the center of the bridge, it does feel like it has a more traditional bridge structure. But yeah.
Fair enough. So sometimes we think of a bridge, bam, there's a bridge in our dream. And you're looking at it like, it's so flat and maybe even close to the water level, you're like, how do ships get under there? Does it go up? Is it a
That
drawbridge?
wasn't questions that were
No,
going through my mind. It was just more like it's also snowing when we're on the bridge. So it starts to snow and sleet and it's icy and cold. And I'm afraid that we're gonna like swerve off the bridge into the water.
for sure. So
Yeah.
your mother says there's a bridge and it draws your attention to it. And for some reason, your thought process speculated about it being a
Yeah.
drawbridge.
Yeah. Mhm.
And there was another piece to that. Is it a drawbridge or something else? Did I write that down wrong, or am I remembering it wrong?
Yeah, I think I had just wrote that like as I'm like kind of examining the bridge. At first I'm thinking, oh, maybe it's one of those bridges that opens to allow boats to go through.
Yeah,
But then it's not. So it's just a very long bridge.
yeah, very interesting too. Like, why that thought of, can the bridge change? Is it a moving bridge? That's not the right
Mm,
words. Maybe let that percolate in the background too. Like, why that thought about whether the bridge would be capable of changing its own shape. There's something in
mm.
there. Um, I don't know. Sometimes I get hung up on things. I'm like, there's a tickle. I don't know what that is. I'm trying to
I
scratch the itch.
I guess like if I were just to give my own sort of
Yeah,
analysis
you
is
can
that
always just pop in.
I don't think the bridge that heads to the Cape is one of those bridges. I think it's a very high bridge, and I don't think it changes at all. And the other bridge that we typically cross to go to Maine, which my mother also has anxiety about, I don't think does that either. But there is a bridge that's closer to me now that does do that, and I don't like crossing them because it gives me anxiety.
Yeah, very
so
much inherited
so
that. Huh?
yeah, exactly. And particularly, I feel like the idea that that bridge that can open and they're going to like stop track of it to open that at some point. I don't particularly like that idea. And so I have cross bridges that are that way. Um, and so I don't know, the memory of me just comes from like Hampton Beach has a bridge. I think that's that way.
Sure.
And
Would you
that's
say
where I've
your
experienced that.
emotional response to drawbridges is typically more stressful or anxiety provoking than solid bridges?
Nah,
Not
probably
really.
similar. Yeah,
Similar.
probably
Okay.
similar.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say that might have been your initial response, was to wonder how bad it
Oh,
was, how
yeah,
bad
maybe. Oh, maybe, yeah,
the impending
yeah, that might be right.
situation could be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I could see that.
fair enough. Yeah, and that's a natural thing we do. We're looking at,
Maybe it's a worse kind of bridge, and then I'm like, oh, it's just a flat, bumpy bridge, so maybe it's
maybe
not
that
quite
won't
as
be so
bad.
bad. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that.
Okay, good deal. I knew there was something in there. It's like, what is this? What is this trying to say? Why would that even occur to you? Um, and you got the idea that it was a very long bridge.
Very long.
There is something in there. I mean, what does it mean to be long? If it's a short bridge, it's over quickly. I mean, the concept
Mm,
of time factors in, or the long haul, the amount of effort something's going to take, how long you have to endure something unpleasant seems to be. I don't know if any of that's bringing anything to mind.
yeah, nothing comes to mind. The bridge does look old though. It's not like fresh planks of wood or anything like that. It's like these like lumpiness of the bridge is like because it's so old.
Yeah, that could speak to um, concerns of safety. Like, this doesn't look too stable. I don't know if that resonates with you or it's more something else.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It didn't the bridge wasn't like rickety or shaky. It was solid as we were crossing it. My fear more was like the slush and us sliding off the road and
Gotcha.
us getting too close to the edge of the bridge as we were crossing it.
Gotcha. Um, I was trying to tease out in my own mind what a different way of looking at that is. What does it mean for something to be old? There's safety, deterioration over time. Old things, maybe they break, they're
Mhm.
not so stable. There's also the representation of things being old, being historical. Not
Mm,
exactly like historical, but it's been there a long time. It's well
yeah,
established.
yeah,
And bridges connect to sides of a river, lake, whatever it's bridging, a chasm. So there's very much the phrase that came to my mind was a very old connection. Um,
mm,
I don't know if that brings anything to mind.
no.
There's something in there in my head too. A long-standing relationship, so old that it's got a visual representation of itself. Something.
Mm.
That's not maybe
Yeah. I
specifically
can't think of anything at the moment.
yeah, if anything, you let it percolate. That's perfectly fine. Sometimes I just plant seeds and they sprout or they don't, and then I forget all
Yeah.
about them. We'll go 20 minutes from now. We're on page 3, and I'm like, I don't remember what I said. Okay, so your sense of anxiety kind of mounts as you're approaching the moment of contact with the bridge, and there's a lane switching going on. And you said actually
Yeah.
before you even got on the bridge, snow started to fall, or there was already snow on the bridge falling?
Not sure.
Okay.
Not sure. I'm just aware that as we're traveling, there's like slush and snow accumulating. And because it's such a bumpy old road, that there's like slush accumulating in like the valleys of the lumps.
Yeah, for sure. And the lane changing, who was driving? Was it you or
Don't know.
don't
I don't think
know?
I don't think it was me, but I am not aware of who was driving. I believe I have a general sense that my family is in the car, like just a general family. But I was talking to my uncle and my cousin. My mother talks about the bridge. Later, when I get out of the car, I think my grandmother is in the car. I think she might be the one that suggests that they drive off the bridge before I get in, and I say no.
Gotcha.
But it's not like when I'm in there, I have visualization or awareness of who they are or other people being in there. It's just this experience that I'm having.
Sure. Yeah. And that's as valid as things you can describe. I saw this. If you say, I know this was happening, literally exactly the same thing, because it's all these
Yeah.
thought processes. That's it. It's an interesting thing to kind of let percolate too. The idea of you don't know it's a car containing your family. It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle in motion containing your family. And there's actually no specifically identified driver. That's interesting too. Is it something in your personal family dynamics where you guys don't have, say, a patriarch or matriarch of the household that everyone looks to? You kind of do your own thing and mutually collaborate on an even playing field of mutual respect. What am I saying? Mutual competency.
I'm not sure.
That's yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm describing that poorly, but there's something
No,
going
no,
on.
I get what you're getting at. I get because like, is there like a figurehead in your family that's like leading your family?
Yeah, it would be like dad drives. Just dad
Yeah.
drives. That's just the way it is. So the person you would put in the driver's seat is dad. But in this case,
Yeah.
it's not dad. It's not mom.
Yeah.
It's not you. It's not your uncle. It's not anybody. There's no
Yeah.
driver.
Yeah,
There's
well, it's
something-
not that there's no driver. It's just that I'm not thinking about who the driver is. I'm not aware.
Fair
Of,
enough.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, no specifically identified driver that you would look to.
Yeah.
Like, of course, they're the driver. They drive. That's so interesting thing there too. And that can lead to, I mean, the driver of the car. It can relate to leadership or the person you look to for advice or direction. Like literally, all these metaphors come together with driving a
Right.
car. Okay, we don't have to get hung up on it again. I'm glad I asked. I completely forgot to. Where were you sitting in the car? You don't know who's driving. You don't know. That's okay.
Not aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. I think I'm in the passenger side. I think I'm in the passenger side.
Front seat?
I think I'm in the passenger side. The reason why I think I'm in the passenger side because I can see that we're very close to the edge of the bridge.
For sure. And that would be on in the right lane.
Yeah, right. But I don't. I'm not sure if it's the back seat or the front seat.
Okay. And all of this occurred to me when I was talking about the lane switching thing, because I would like, who was switching lanes? Who was doing the driving? But was there any sense that the lane switching was to avoid the worst slushiness? Like the purpose?
I don't
behind it?
recall. I don't know. Don't know. And I'm not aware of other cars on the bridge either. What's interesting in dreams too is that like your what's the term? Focal point or not focal point, but you're like
close enough.
Your camera view that you're seeing in the dream like is not at all consistent. And so like sometimes we're moving across the bridge, but sometimes it's not like I'm in a car even. I'm just like seeing the edge and I'm seeing the textures and the details and stuff. So
yeah. And sometimes you might even go third person and you're looking back from ahead and in front, looking at the car, and you're like, that car's way too close to the edge.
Yeah, you can like see different angles.
At your uncle.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So you didn't have a good sense of why the lane changes. Did it feel like they were being done safely? Did it feel like you were sliding out of control as if the lane changes were not necessarily voluntary?
felt like we were no, it wasn't like that.
Okay.
It just felt like we were going too fast and we were changing lanes just too often for my comfort level.
Gotcha. Too fast.
But not that we were like swerving out of control or anything. It was just like I didn't feel comfortable with how they were driving, but it didn't feel like we were actually swerving out of control.
Gotcha.
I just didn't feel
that has a very
comfortable with
distinct
them.
feeling to it. You're like, whoa,
Yeah.
we're fishtailing.
Like, yeah,
is
so that was not
interesting
part of
too.
the dream. It was just I don't feel comfortable with how fast we're going. I don't feel comfortable with us changing lanes. I don't feel comfortable with us being so close to the edge. I don't feel comfortable with how fast we're driving given the weather conditions.
Yeah. And you know, the idea of precisely who was driving may be less important than it wasn't you. You're a passenger in this car. You're kind of getting taken along a place you're not thrilled to be. They're making choices you would not make in this long,
Sure.
lengthy process of whatever it is. And you're just kind of, you got to white knuckle it and hold on and hope someone doesn't make a mistake that puts your life at risk in that way. So in a sense, to boil it down a bit, it'd be like, you know, imagine you're kind of in a situation where you're along for the ride and you're not in control, and other people might make decisions that are going to impact you. And you got to kind of tolerate the distress because you didn't just tolerate the distress. At one point, you're like, I'm getting out of the car. What led to that moment?
I'm not sure.
Thoughts?
I don't have anything recorded in my recording of why that was, but at some point I get out of the vehicle, and I'm not sure. I'm not aware. I'm not like in the dream. I get out of the vehicle, but it's not like I'm flung out of the vehicle or I jump out of a speeding vehicle or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just like decide to get out, I guess.
And
but
to your
we're
knowledge,
not.
you open the door and step out, and you're not struck by rolling on the ground.
Correct. Yeah.
It's
No.
like the car at some point came to a stop. So you made.
But I do fall in a puddle when I get out.
Yeah. So you actually made a decision to exit the vehicle. So if we were to take my description of it, you're along for the ride. You're not in control. Other people's decisions are possibly putting your life at risk. And you're like, no, I'm getting out. And you make that happen. The car is suddenly at a standstill. It has stopped. The problem that was the specific problem of that time had been resolved by the ability to assert yourself. And you step out immediately into a puddle that you sink into. Or
I just like, I just fall into a puddle. Yeah, I guess. It's like icy. It's a slushy, snowy ice puddle.
And do you like fall bodily into it, or
Yeah,
like your whole and it was slushy, puddly, but not like cannonball in a swimming pool. You didn't sploosh.
No.
So just
no, it was a very
splat.
yes, it was a very physics appropriate, like real world appropriate. I slipped and fell into a puddle on the ice, sort of deal.
Gotcha. So an interesting representation to yourself of like, I'm gonna attempt to assert some control over a situation I was not entirely in control of. And what's the first thing that happens? I have some kind of consequence for that. Yeah. Oh, maybe that wasn't the right way to handle it. Just an idea. And that's, so when you notice, when you have that experience of falling on your ass in the attempt of asserting yourself, that's when you notice there's an additional layer of danger, or the danger is growing. The slush is
the slush. There's like the slush is so deep on the vehicle that it's like up. It's like up more than halfway up the car now. And I'm not sure if that happens, like if that's why I got out of the car, or if that happened after. I feel like it, because I fell into the puddle, and so this is not that deep when I fall into the puddle. But then when I go back into the car, it's like higher than waist deep slush that we're in.
Gotcha. Well, that's an interesting sequence of events too. So it's bad enough the way it is. You try and fix something, and you realize it's worse than people even realize, or it's gotten worse in the interim. And now you have to decide: am I?
You guys don't even realize how bad it is out here.
Oh, wow, it's worse than I knew. And that's when you kind of have the interaction. You think it might have been your grandmother who said,
I think it might be my grandmother. Yeah.
And how do you remember that exchange going? I mean, I know you said a little bit about it. They offered to drive off the bridge, but how did that actually kind of play out?
Yeah, it's just like I was going to open the door, but if I open the door, like, so there's resistance on opening the door because there's so much slush in the way. So I don't know if I'm not sure how much snow you guys get there, but like if you open the door and there's a lot of snow, like snow will fall into the car, which is unavoidable when
Yeah.
you're trying to like shovel your car and stuff like that. So it's kind of like that where there's like slush going to fall into the car when I open it, and so they're like, oh well. It has a very similar feel to like this interaction had a very similar feel to like here, if we're driving up, someone might try to open their door getting out of their car, but the snow mound is too high on the outside, and so they can't open their door, and so they'll be like,
gives a little until the snow gets packed, and then it's solid. It's a wall.
Yeah, or you're gonna like damage the car because of the icy mound that's there. And so in real, I'm not talking about dream, just in real life, someone might say, well, let me pull forward a little bit so that you can open your door to get out of the vehicle, or that you can get into the vehicle. Because where it's parked, you can't open the door because of the snow mound. So it has that sort of vibe to it, where they're like, well, let us pull forward a little bit so that you can open the door better without the slush. That's the sort of vibe.
So in the image of your grandmother, from that image comes a very practical suggestion, a solution to getting you back in to the traveling vehicle space, whatever was going on. And so that's it wasn't anything like they were gonna drive off and leave you behind. They weren't.
No, it didn't have those vibes. I don't think it had those vibes.
It was very much a offering of practical advice in a legitimately helpful way. Like, this might be better, but you declined.
I'm like, nope, I'm getting in. I'm getting in, and so I just get in the vehicle anyways.
Gotcha. And you were able to make it work. You kind of wiggled it out as far as you could and squeezed back in. And good enough. And then it wasn't long after that where you reached the end of the bridge.
I don't have a memory of the end of the bridge. The next memory I have is arriving at a restaurant.
Okay, that's very interesting too. So we've got these kind of segmented. I start making breaking things up into little pieces, and there's vignettes like that where it's like there's a self-contained idea that has discrete elements that tell the story, and then that chunk of self-contained idea opens the door to the next set of self-contained ideas with its own imagery, but there's a connection somewhere.
And I wonder, in real life, the time periods where these dreams were occurring, like are they all connected in a very close sequence, or is there a period of break where I'm not dreaming anymore? Like, so is the bridge like one cycle of REM sleep, and then there's a disconnect, and then I have another cycle of REM sleep, which is like a slightly related story, and that's why the disconnect is happening? I don't know, but it's kind of curious.
It very well could be, and that's so if we did like a Foursquare whatever window, it could be that they are completely disconnected by time. They could be completely immediate. They could be completely disconnected by topic, or they could be sequentially related. So try and get to that. If we can find a way to connect them, maybe they are. If we can't, they might actually just be three completely separate dreams you had in the same night. And that's a funny thing too, because the way it is we have to, if we don't perceive time, it didn't happen. It's like if you don't dream, you fall asleep and you wake up the next day, it's like no time passed at all. It was 8-10 hours, whatever it was, but it didn't exist because you weren't there for it. So the same thing is in our dreams. It could have been immediately on the heels of each other. They could have been literally 2 or 3 hours apart, and your brain comes back to an idea that got spurred by the last thing you thought of 2 hours ago.
But what's interesting, and this might be an inaccurate perception, but I do seem to have a perception of the order that they happened in.
And it was the order you told me.
Yeah. So it does feel like I have an understanding of the order, but no understanding of how far apart they were.
And these might have been three dream sequences that happened in literally 3 seconds of actual, literal, physical time.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because we can pack a lot of ideas in microseconds, especially when we've got nothing out here
Yeah.
interfering with it, drawing our attention away. What was there was a very kind of a famous dream report from one of the books where there was this old army guy and a retired colonel or something, and he used to have horrible dreams that a skeleton was trying to choke him, and he hired a guy to sit by his bed and said, "Hey, hit me with a stick if I fall asleep for even a fraction of a second." And so this guy was sitting by his bed one night, and the colonel fell asleep, and he had a long dream where he fought and fought with this skeleton, and it was choking him out, and it went on forever. And suddenly the guy woke him, and he was pissed. He's like, "Why the hell did you let that go on for so long?" He said, "I hit you with the stick as soon as your breathing changed. You started to snore. I hit you. 2 or 3 seconds of time." And it felt like an eternity to him. So
Interesting.
it just illustrates the concept. Yeah. But
The other thing here is that like there is this sort of these things did seem to happen in this order, but I arrived at the restaurant and I'm not even sure, is it the same car ride? Were we riding to the restaurant in the original part of the dream? I don't necessarily know. It's just the next thing I remember is I'm arriving at a restaurant, you know?
Yeah, and it could be as simple as your brain is looking for an explanation. Why were you in the car anyway? Why were we going across the bridge? Where were you going with your family?
Yeah.
Well, we go out to eat sometimes, so
We're going to a restaurant.
go to a restaurant. Sometimes it's that simple. But then again, it could be, why a restaurant? Maybe that's the most obvious answer. Yes, I go out to eat with family, but it is also suggestive. It's another social setting. You weren't going to a concert where you were all going to sit quietly and watch someone else. This is where you come together to ingest, to take care of the basic life function of keeping yourselves alive with food, but also in a social setting. You don't go out to eat dinner separately, although you do, which is very interesting. You go off by yourself to have dinner. You had a thought?
Something else for, I guess, dream interpret. Do you want me to add some bits in as I think of things?
Sure.
So something else that's kind of interesting, I guess, is that the car, even though I'm not fully aware of who's in my car and it seems to change a little bit, it's definitely all family. And that the restaurant is not all family.
Yeah.
So we get there and we're going in and my family's going in, and particularly I have memory of my mother and father, but then there's other people with us that are not part of my family that seem to be part of my church or something. But there's and again, individuals, I don't have any I don't remember recognizing any of them, just the feeling that these people are people I know but aren't my family.
Yeah, very much more. Again, that kind of the idea was getting of the layers of social connection in relationships. You get core family, extended family, and now you're at a social event in a way with not just your family, it's saying, but other people you kind of include in family in a way. Like your church group is it's your community. So all these things are nested, like America, the nation, Oregon, the state, Portland, the city, my neighborhood, my house, my wife, my cats, get smaller and smaller, nested within each other. So very much you're at this place where the strong representation, iconic representation of family, mother and father are there, but also your extended community is with you going to this experience, whatever that is. We haven't gotten there yet, of course. It is interesting. You had an observation that the other people were dressed fancy, but that you,
there was
how would you,
there was a woman
that a bit?
There was a woman. So the sort of vibe that I was getting was that like we were going out. So let me take a step back. Sometimes after some sort of church meeting or some sort of special sermon sort of thing, people might go out to eat afterwards, and so we'd all be dressed up, and that was like fairly common, and so that's the sort of vibe that I have, and that I am aware, and I see a woman in a dress, in a sort of like flowery sort of red dress that you might wear to church or something, going in, and I'm like, oh, I'm not dressed well enough.
Gotcha. That kind of leads towards the social comparison side of things. Like, am I properly prepared for this experience? Feeling underdressed, feeling is basically the idea of feeling unprepared. I don't know if that resonates or
yeah, it might be a little bit.
Fair enough. Cha 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 cha. And that's sometimes that's all it takes. You didn't have to see an entire row of people in tuxedos. You're just one person, and you're looking at them
Well,
going,
we're walking
I'm not
in.
dressed as nicely as they are."
We're walking in through like a doorway or like through a relatively narrow entrance way, and she's in front of me, and I don't know who it is, and I don't see her again, but I have the sense that she's part of my group, and she's wearing this like sort of flowery dress.
Gotcha. Any other kind of details about the exterior of the restaurant, the
Nothing. No.
interior, the decor, the
The,
lighting?
the interior is kind of dark and moody and maybe sophisticated looking. Right now, I'm getting and I'm not sure if this is just me adding details.
Yeah.
Which it might be, but I think it has a similar ambiance to the pub that we used to go to when I was a kid.
Okay.
Which has got this
that might
like
have been what it evoked that feeling, and it might not have even been clear to you at the time that that's what it was. But now you're looking at it going, "Oh, that's kind of how that other place felt."
Just kind of dark.
I think that's equally valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any strong feelings about that place? You like it? You dislike it?
Oh, absolutely positive. I mean, the actual restaurant, positive childhood memories. Yeah.
I'm trying to write a little neater now. I might have to refer to some of this stuff. Well, it's good. Yeah, no, it would be a very different experience. So even it's interesting too. Yeah, a lot of this stuff comes back from memory. I mean, that's where we draw a lot of our imagery from anyway, but also our emotional stuff. It's like, remember when? And it's like, remember when this happened because this is about to happen, and understand it in that context. So some of these things we just percolate. Yeah.
Well, I'll wait until we get to the rest of the dream.
Okay, you did more detail about this point of the dream.
No, I was just saying that. So that was part of the detail that I said earlier. I was like, there's more detail is the ambiance of the restaurant. That is part of the dream. But I don't know how to I don't know how to describe it necessarily, but I am aware of the ambiance, which is this like dark, sort of moody, sort of like the restaurant that we used to go to is like an English pub. I'm not sure if all English style pubs look the same or not, if they have the same vibe. But this one has a very dark, it's got a lot of wood in it. And it's kind of got the similar sort of vibe going on. But it's a very stark contrast to the where I sit later on, because the waitress takes me to a different room, and it's a very sterile, very white hospital-like room. And so there's a contrast and there.
Even though when we say dark, there's a lot of different ways of describing that, because you
not dark as in negative, dark as in like cozy, very very homey, very there's a kind of wood that I know exactly what you're talking about in terms of like it's seen a lot of elbows on it, and it's a very warm, dark like wood tone. Teak, it's like teak wood maybe.
Yeah.
I think the carpet is maybe a dark reddish color maybe. I would say it has similar vibes to the restaurant that we used to go to when I was a kid.
Yeah, but all has those very comfy, homey, comforting, welcoming environment. Sure. Like, be comfortable here. This is a place you're welcome.
Sure. But also, I feel like maybe it's a little bit more formal than the restaurant that we went to as a kid, like slightly more formal.
Gotcha, for sure. And that's and all of that is kind of bound up with. It presented to you at the same instant in a way of like, I should probably be dressed better because she is. And that seems like the kind of place it was, even though it has a familiar, comfy vibe.
Yeah.
All of that, bam. And we spent like 10 minutes talking about what does the restaurant feel like? And it happened in an instant in the dream. That's fantastic. And again, these are just little data points. So we start connecting the dots. Maybe that's related to something. So you said you had the experience of deciding to sit with people you didn't know, but maybe you could tell me a little bit more about kind of how that happened. Did you watch yourself split off from the group? Did you have a moment of, I don't want to sit with them? Or
we go up there, and I think there might have even been confusion in the dream where there was like a large table that my group is being sat at. And I just choose to sit next to these three people, which I think are like Southeast Asian, which also has like my church is very like multi well, I don't know, multi-ethnic sort of thing. So like, I've had a lot of like diversity exposure through my church. And so it would be very common for us to go out as a group, and there's just like dozens of different, ethnic and cultural backgrounds represented at our table. And so that's also kind of a cue that this is part of my church.
So you chose to sit with some specific people, and it accidentally turned out they weren't actually with your group.
Yeah. And so I think initially I kind of sat with them at the table that was part of our large table maybe. And then after I sat down, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't even the same table. Like, and they were also dressed very nice.
Very interesting. Yeah. So you've got, there's a comedy of errors that takes place briefly where there's just some mistaken cues that lead you to a harmless accidental result. That's interesting too. So there's, this whole putting together the story of the thing, like you're heading into a social situation with a large group of people that are in your community, and there's almost immediately a mistaken cue of how to properly include yourself with the group. You had a thought?
Yes. So before that happens, though, before I sit with them, I see Lincoln Rhett from Good Mythical Morning.
That's right. And maybe you could tell me a little bit about that, because I don't even know who those people
are. Before we even make it to the table, I see them kind of on our side. So it's interesting that they appear in my dream because I'm aware of them, but they're not like YouTubers that I watch. Like, I have watched them, but why they're in my dream, I'm not entirely sure. It's not like they play a particularly like important part in my life, or they make up probably less than 1% of my total YouTube viewing, like total lifetime YouTube viewing.
Yeah.
So
when you say strange. Good Mythical Morning, do they talk about mythology and symbology and different?
No, I don't think so. They do. I'm not sure if you'd consider them a podcast, but they have like their own little talk show almost, but they do silly things. I feel like they talk about silly things. They
mostly entertainers in a way.
Yeah, very much entertaining, comedy, silly stuff. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's.
But I don't even watch them enough to like give you a good description.
No, that's fair enough too. But there is something about why them specifically there. I mean, it wasn't. It's a talking head news personality. It wasn't someone from the History Channel that does documentaries. It was this kind of goofy, silly, fun.
The only thing that I can think of is that on YouTube they have YouTube Shorts. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
And so you just like swipe on YouTube Shorts, and it just like gives you new content and stuff. And they make YouTube Shorts that had showed up in my feed.
Okay.
And so I had seen a couple of shorts with them in it. And so that's my most recent like interaction or exposure to them, I guess you could say. Gotcha. That might have just maybe it was just they were in the feed at one point and that just triggered them to be in the dream. But like those little shorts that I saw like weren't particularly meaningful to me. I don't even remember what they were. But that's the most recent time that I've seen them, because I don't watch their shows, or even if they even still do. I'm assuming they still do it, but
fair enough.
Yeah.
The connections in my brain is like when there's things that are serious or more serious or less serious.
I see. Okay.
And entertainment stuff is definitely less serious. But what do I mean by serious?
And they're silly. They do goofy, silly comedy stuff as well, though. So it's not just entertainers. They're like goofy entertainers.
For sure. Yeah. And there's a kind of, what am I trying to say? In understanding of why something like what that is an icon of. In the sense, the fact that it wasn't some other kind of person is supposed to contribute. I think likely probably contributes to how you're conceiving this space and who you would be likely to find there. It's you want to. It's serious enough that you want to dress nicely, maybe out of respect. I mean, that's where a lot of our clothing standards come from, showing respect for the nature of the social interaction or the place itself. You dress up to go to church because that's important. You wear a nice suit to a funeral to show respect for the dead. So you're in a place where there's this nice combination. There's a combination of things going on where you're with family and community at a place where you should demonstrate, or you would be at least concerned about demonstrating the proper respect, and but also the people who are with you also enjoying this space, people that are not out of place there, are these goofy guys that just make comedy videos. um
Hmm.
so again, I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to give you all those
Yeah, yeah.
connected
Well, so
story type of
it's
ideas.
interesting that they are kind of. I also noticed them, and I'm like, well, that's strange. That like I'm surprised that they're here. And I don't know. It's hard to judge how famous people are on YouTube, but I think that they're like relatively YouTube famous. Again, I don't know the scale of that, but and so I think in my dream, I'm kind of like, well, it's strange that these like kind of famous YouTubers are here. I didn't think about that, but they are kind of out of place as far as the tone. But then when I sit down with these people at the wrong table, I also make jokes, which is like they make jokes. So I don't know if there's a connection there, but
Yeah, there might be two, or there might have been a cue to yourself about how to best approach this social situation you were about to engage in.
mm,
Hey, remember how much everybody loves those guys? If you were a little like that, maybe people would love you too.
mm.
Something
But
along those
I
lines.
also wonder if I have this linear story that I remember and I perceive it as this linear story, but I wonder if as I'm processing it, if it is even linear. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
is some of this happening simultaneously or out of order? And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, it actually goes together like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Well, just on the dream, and this again from the historical dream literature, 14 currently available works. There is something that they've very much. Okay, now I'm gonna get to. It's not confabulation. It's something else. It's a retroactive organizing that we
yeah,
do on waking. So there's actually no way to ever know what our actual dream experience was, because the only thing we ever know is this is what I remember happened after I've
right.
already woken up.
And
So
so I wouldn't be surprised if there is some non-linearity happening, and that some of the cues that I'm putting them together after the fact into a story.
yeah,
But
for sure. And there's no way. And actually, if we were to try to come back to this story in 20 years, your memory of it might even be completely different. There might be more details. The woman
mm,
wasn't wearing a red dress. I remember there was a red petals on some of them, but it was a yellow dress.
yeah,
That kind of a thing.
yeah,
It changed, and it may or
yeah,
may not be that specific. That's why I try not to get into, oh, it was the
sure,
color red. Red means
yeah,
anger. You were angry at this woman. You hate women. That's just stupid.
yeah,
so,
yeah,
um, so it may or may not be critical that those guys were there, and you may not have even seen them at that moment, but it plays into your feeling about them, and the idea that you were. It almost seemed like there was. I'm glad you mentioned it. The idea of a mismatch was like you wouldn't expect to see them in a place like this. Number one, they can
yeah.
afford to eat, and maybe at a much better place, but also it didn't seem to fit the tone of what was
The tone.
happening.
No, I was aware that they didn't fit the tone in the dream. That was like a feeling that I had for
For
sure.
sure, yeah. And so that might have been a acknowledgement, a reminder, or just a fleeting thought of your own of like, whatever you do in this setting, don't be like that. That's too much. That's the wrong tone.
Mm.
You don't want to reflect that.
I'm wondering if maybe what's happening because we're walking into the restaurant and I had something on family and group is there. There's this woman in this sort of like flowery reddish dress, and I'm like, oh, I'm not dressed appropriately. Maybe I'm a little bit. I'm thinking maybe I'm a little bit confused, or I'm assessing the situation or assessing how I should be dressed or how formal this event is. And so as I'm walking in, I'm assessing how she's dressed, and then I see them there, and so I'm like getting mixed signals
what
about
really is the
what
nature of the thing that's happening here? Yeah, yeah.
what's the appropriate behavior or what the appropriate dress I should
Yeah,
have
how am
had
I supposed to
because
respond? I already showed up underdressed. Damn.
because the initial feeling of oh I'm not dressed right, that's not present ever again in the thing. Like my clothes are not important to the story at all, and so
Yeah.
it's I think maybe it's more about behavior or something.
Yeah, or that process of how you approach new circumstances. It's not,
Yeah.
I like to back way out and look at the fishbowl and inside the fishbowl. Um, that idea of it may just be automatic to you. You do a little assessment wherever you go in every new situation. I think we all do. Some of us are more or less aware of it. Like some people just kind of go with not blinders on, but there's a definitely a scale between unaware and hyper vigilant. So,
Mm,
and there's some folks that they're not completely oblivious. They're not, but they're natural. They're very like whatever they think they say it, whatever they do it, and they don't think about it. This is just me. Then there's some of us, me included, where I'm like, okay, I don't do this naturally very well. I need to try and figure out what's going on, and then I can try to tailor my response to the, maybe don't crack jokes at the funeral and don't be overly stuffy at a house party,
Yeah.
trying to balance that out. Some people do it naturally. They just get it. Not so much me. So I don't know if that resonates with you at all. Like you tend to cognitively.
I mean, it definitely does. But I'm not sure how meaningful it is to the dream or not. But yeah, I mean, I guess some level I'm assessing like the nature of this event in the dream.
I think it was very insightful to just kind of acknowledge that. Like, oh, this kind of seems like how I would approach tailoring my behavior to the appropriateness of the setting. Yeah, it's an idea. That may not be critical, but I think definitely useful to think about. So you briefly saw them, and then that's when you got into the bit of a confusion of where to sit. You looked at people that looked like they would be from your church, and you ended up seated with them. How quickly did you realize?
I think it was real quick. It seemed like instantly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then I make some sort of joke, but the joke isn't present in the dream. Like, I don't remember the joke, but I don't think the joke was even in the dream. Like, and then, or it was just something about, oops, I did something funny and everyone laughed, and I got up.
And it was a very laughing with you, not at you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that's good too. Well, and that might have been a thing. Like if we look at this of that sequence of events of like, as you assessing the situation, you looking at someone who's, are they out of place? You suddenly become out of place, but it's easily corrected. I screwed up, and people go, oh, it happens all the time. And you move on.
Yeah.
Very interesting little,
something like that.
Yeah. Very little quick thing happening.
Yeah.
So you get up from that table and follow a waiter, like someone shows up to lead you to another place.
That part of the dream, I'm not like, I'm just like, I think that's me adding things after the fact. I have no memory of the dream itself as far as how I get there. Like I'm just like sat at another table, but there's no details about that.
Okay. No, that happens sometimes. Like there's no difference in dreams of, I remember every second of a 20-mile train ride and every detail. Sometimes like, so I was getting on a train and then I got off at the depot. Yeah. Because that's what it was. You remember getting on the train. You remember stepping off the train. Nothing, because the ride never happened maybe.
I do believe that there is somebody who, it's the context that I'm like, oh, it's a waiter that was doing this, but like somebody did guide me to this other seat. Like somebody sat me in this other seat.
Okay.
It wasn't like, it's not like I'm just like suddenly there in like dream magic.
I did want to nail that down just a little bit too, because it could have been you just wandered around and found a seat and you did. But you actually
I don't think so.
Guided there. And whether you remember who it was or not, you could have been, I'm sitting in the seat and someone brought me here. That might have been, maybe it was a waiter, maybe it wasn't. But probably the concept that you were guided there, it was someone came along to provide you direction and put you where you were supposed to be.
Which is like down the hallway, nowhere near the table of anybody else for some reason. Yeah.
Far from family and community.
And the room that I'm eating in has like one table, and the table that I'm eating at is like a school table, like a school desk, where it's like the desk is attached to the chair, or it's something kind of like that. And I'm by myself, so it's like one chair in the middle of a room.
And you described it as a very kind of sterile, hospital-like,
very hospital-like, very small. There's just one entrance and exit door sort of thing, and I'm facing that one door.
Do you remember what the table's made of? Like stainless steel or
what? Not stainless steel. I think it's a lot like a school desk, like resin or
school desk. Yeah. Like
resin or something. Like I don't have a lot of details of it, but it's like that.
Yeah. Well, it's just me rattling doorknobs. I asked for a detail. Yeah. It's not there. It's not there.
Yeah. No, but it's like a school desk of some sort.
Yeah. Any other features of the room? Window, lighting, pictures.
It's bright. It's white. It's very white. and very much like a hospital room or maybe a school room.
Fluorescent
And then
lights or no sense of.
I would say fluorescent lights, yes, because the restaurant is like dark and homey and has this
Yeah.
like warm ambiance.
This room is
And
like harsh.
yeah, very harsh. Yeah, and then to my to my left, there's this like receptacle with orange condoms that are latex balloons.
um, do you remember the food in front of you? Because you finished eating before you left.
I did. Yeah, what's coming to mind right now is like some sort of like pate or something.
Okay.
like some sort of like mound of like mashed something. The food wasn't. I don't have strong memory of the food. I'm saying pate not because it's fancy, but just because it's like this like mat. It's just like a mound of like tuna fish or something.
Yeah, very interesting. So not a hot dog from the ballpark.
Not a hot dog.
You know? Not a
Yeah, not
a filet mignon, not a bowl of pasta, not anything that might be well prepared, but like just a pile of quote unquote food, literally nourishment. There's something in there of like, this is, you're not here to enjoy this. You're here to get the nutrition and get the fuck out.
I'm not sure. I gotta like. I said pate. I'm not even sure if pate is the right term for what I'm looking for.
No, fair enough. But I think you were describing more the texture, like a mound or mashed pate of something, like indistinct.
Kind of like if you put like again, this was not a big part of. I do have memory of it a little bit, but like it's not a focal point of the dream.
Yeah.
But I think it's just kind of like a sort of a round mound of like tuna fish or something, like but something like that, like some sort of like
wasn't a plate of grandma's cooking, or it wasn't wasn't barbecue chicken from the 4th of July. There's a lot of different iconic things it could have been,
or maybe even like a meatloaf type of like a round disc of meatloaf or something like that.
It reminds me of like astronaut food in a way. Not that it was exactly, but the idea of astronaut food, it serves a purpose. It is packaged, condensed, highly nutritious. It's mush in a bag because you just need food, and this is the best way to get it to you. So there's something about you weren't there to socialize. There were no other people. You weren't there to even enjoy the food because it wasn't anything special. It was just
I don't remember having negative feelings about the food though. Sure. It wasn't like I don't recall having negative or positive feelings. And I do remember it came out on a plate, like it was a plate, and it was like it was a restaurant like meal that I was given. Yeah. But it wasn't memorable. No.
Yeah, no, that too. It's like its purpose wasn't to be enjoyable nor unenjoyable. It was simply meant to be done in a way. Like you're here to eat, get it done, and just
I guess.
I don't know. There's something going on in there. Maybe that's not resonating with you, but that's what I'm seeing in terms of the.
No, I mean the
atmosphere too.
Yeah. So I'm looking at pictures of canned pate. Yeah. And I think that canned canned pate that's just been like blopped on the plate is
it
kind
reminds
of
me of cat food is basically what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Mush on a plate.
A lot like that, but it had a round shape to it, whatever it was.
Yeah, good, because they keep the shape of the can when they flop it on
yes,
there.
That's the vibe,
and you didn't feel like the restaurant wasn't messing with you. They weren't trying to serve you cat food.
It was just the food,
They weren't trying to ruin your experience or make it any better. It is exactly what it is. There's something, and I think this is where I'm going with it. The idea of the cold, sterile, clinical hospital setting, and there isn't a lot of decoration because you're not there to appreciate the paintings. You're there to get something done. So all of this general idea of a focus on taking care of business in a way, whatever that means. And do you remember finishing eating, or before you even started eating, before the food was even delivered, noticing the container?
Before I finished eating.
So you were actually served, and something about going through that process made you realize there was another object in the room.
I don't have strong memory. Like so me noticing the object, the receptacle thing, and then later the TV or the radio or whatever. like there isn't a good time. I feel like in my dream there isn't a good relationship between the time of those two things,
Yeah,
other
it
than that
isn't
they happen.
necessarily sequential.
Right.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that may not be a real strong. It may not be necessary to try and make it sequential in any way. I'm almost going to say there's like multiple parts to the restaurant dream because they kind of
well. So I was about to say that as well because I feel like the hospital room scene is like, is it a separate scene in the dream, or is it's part of the restaurant scene because I go back to the restaurant?
Yeah, definitely
and I'm eating.
You're definitely somewhere else temporarily.
It's a mini arc.
Yeah, a dream within a dream, in a sense, of nested within the greater experience. Maybe even something you needed to go through as a result of what had already happened to get you back where you really wanted to be. Something like that. I try and put together those kind of story arcs, if possible. So you were telling me about the thing, and it was when you say triangular, first thing I thought of was like you know what Toblerones look like?
Yeah.
They're like a triangle, but it's a long triangle, like a cylinder got cut into a triangular shape.
So here, I think McDonald's has these like donation boxes that you can put your change in after you. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Kind of, sort of, but I'm trying to imagine how the triangle shape fits into it. Well,
so it's just kind of like up against the wall. That it's just like a receptacle that's on the wall.
Okay. So it actually, like, here's the wall, and it's triangulated out from the wall, and you just dump stuff.
Yes,
in it.
yeah. Okay. Or like you know what it might look like is sometimes they'll have like clear like file holders that you'll put on the wall. So it's almost just like a triangle. It's like a piece of plastic that kind of comes out and you put files in it.
Gotcha.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
something like that.
I think so.
But it's just clear plastic acrylic. But it's filled with latex balloon condoms.
And if you had to judge, so it's basically like an open bin type container where you just reach in the top and pull things out, or
yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Any idea of the rough size of it? Like 6 inches, 12, 19, 24?
I would say that it is probably maybe 2 feet wide. And then like the side is kind of, it's kind of triangular shape going up the side. Gotcha.
So it's decently big. This is meant to hold
the perception is that so there's a lot of them in it. Yeah. The feeling that I have about it is that, like, at my job, where I was the residential counselor, we had like condoms for free for clients to use. And I've seen that elsewhere. I forget where I've seen that, where they're just like, you can, I think I went to a community center and they had like condoms. They were just like, they were just like a fishbowl of condoms that you can just have.
It's kind of a pretty ubiquitous thing in a lot of places. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen that at several places. And so it's got that vibe where there's like condoms that are just like for free to take if you need them, sort of thing.
And then when you were describing them, I almost got like a safety cone orange. Is that the idea of, or like a road construction crew vest orange type of?
They are. That's not, I didn't make that association, but they are like that. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
if you had a different association with the color, like how would you describe the color if you had to say it's like this other kind of object?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, it's orange. I'm not sure that it's high vis orange though.
Gotcha. Fair enough. I mean, they weren't striped with reflective material. That would be very obvious.
No. Yeah, no, it wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. But
it does, so the first thing that popped in my head is these orange balloon-like condoms. Well, condoms are for safety, and orange is that highly visible color for safety. I don't know if I mean, so I would say they're orange. It might be.
But they're not a high-vis orange.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. Not quite. And I'm trying to like see if I have anything that's near me that's like that's orange. Oh, actually. No, this is not it either.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I don't have anything specifically, but sometimes just by asking what it's like, people go, it's like this other, it's like this other orange, and they get an epiphany right there. I was hoping for I can't think like
that. I do have things like around my room here that are orange, but like I have stuff that's more high vis orange, but it's not high vis. It's just like an orange.
I would take a stab and say it's maybe not related to anything in your room.
I know.
Yeah.
If like a sports team might have like orange and black as their colors. Like I feel like it'd be like the orange that you'd see on like a sports jersey or something, or like a high school or maybe a college or a high school colors where they've got like two different colors and one of them is kind of an orange, but not a high vis orange, just a bright orange.
Yeah, when you were talking about the idea of sports teams, college, nothing resonated with you there. Isn't no sudden connections on that specifically.
No, not specifically. Yeah. I'm just thinking like I feel like I've seen football teams that have orange.
Yeah,
I can't think. I'm not
Colts. That's probably completely wrong. I haven't followed football.
Did they have orange? I don't know.
That might have. I feel like that might have been one of their colors in 1983, the last time I watched football. You know, that's just
I would say there's definitely a football team orange.
Yeah, go for it. Look it up. Live research.
Here's some that are a good example for sure. Oh, it's a Syracuse versus Boston College. SU wearing all orange uniforms, but yeah, that's the right orange.
There you go. And nothing is resonating with you in the sports connection, so probably not that. It could just be like here's a color that's bright because it's meant to attract attention, and it does. Maybe. It attracts your attention. It draws your eyes right. Oh, look at that! That thing's just full of them.
Yeah,
and you said
they're all open.
What's that?
They're all open. It's like condoms,
containers, right?
Yeah, so condoms come in a little like square package, and they're all rolled up. But these aren't rolled up. They're not in a package. They're just latex balloons.
But as far as you, as far as you can tell, they haven't been used. They aren't leftovers. They're meant to be taken, but they're not properly stored. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea
they don't look like they're even shaped like condoms necessarily. Like they look like latex balloons.
So that's very interesting. A color that is meant to attract attention, pulls your attention to the fact that they are not properly stored. They're unrolled. They don't even look like they're the right shape. You said they had some kind of a window thing in them, like a clear
They've got a window. Yeah. So do you know Among Us?
Yeah.
And so Among Us are like
the face.
Yes. Yeah. So the Among Us have like this like a clear, I don't know, it's supposed to be clear, I think, visor. So these balloons have like a visor sort of window on them a little bit like that too.
Very interesting. So you've got this kind of representation of something it seems poorly designed for what it's intended to do.
Maybe
I don't know if that resonates with you in any way.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I knew that they were condoms.
Yeah.
But I'm aware that they're condoms.
Yeah. And that's true. If you are aware that that is what they are, then that is exactly what they are in the dream, or at least what they're meant to be. But you're looking at it in all the ways that it seems like they're not. It seems like they're not. It's like those are supposed to be, but someone didn't do it right. They didn't put it in the proper package. It's got this weird glass, or not glass, but see-through portion of it. They look like they're just balloons. Like, is someone trying to pass these off as condoms, or did someone just do the job poorly? There's some assessment of the quality of work, I think, going on in there. Man, also in this scene, like the quality of the dinner, seems like you were more. Not upset is not the right word, but more it seemed more important that these were done poorly than even your meal was just a.
Sure. Yeah, that was more. They're much more interesting in the scene than the food.
Yeah.
The scene is not. The food is not interesting, but these are interesting to me.
In general, in real life, are you usually pretty busy and where like you just kind of eat anything, get it over with, scarf it down, head out the door to the next thing?
Probably, yeah.
Fair enough. And then I did want to assume, I wanted to ask, but I definitely had that in mind of like, there is sitting down to a nice meal and the purpose is to be there to enjoy the food and the company. And there's also the very functional, I just need sustenance because I got shit to do type of thing. And I'll do that.
I mean, I do both.
Yeah,
I do both, but
yeah, and it doesn't have to be one or the other, but there's different settings where each is appropriate. And
sure.
So, and there's nothing wrong with that of like, I'll just eat a granola bar. I got to go. I'll not a problem. I do that all the time. What was the resolution in this room? You finished eating, you made note of the things that were present, but you didn't do anything about it, or,
there was some sort of radio. No, I didn't take one.
No, before you left. That's right.
There's like a TV or a radio or something playing, and it's just like, and in the feelings that I had about it was that this was like state propaganda that I was being forced to listen to.
Yeah.
Like very much like you might think of like a 1984 sort of, or
Oh
North
yeah.
Korea or something, where I'm being like fed pregnancy statistics, which seems to relate to the condoms.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you remember
which I don't.
anything about what they were saying?
Nah, nothing.
Do you remember feeling there was a specific intent behind it? Like this was stuff you were meant to believe, or
No, it didn't feel like it was meant for me. Actually, I would say the opposite. I would say that it's not meant for me, and I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, well, this is weird. Like, who uses these? Like, who
yeah,
comes here? Who takes those things? Yeah.
yeah, not sure what to make of that too. Because no, it is very, very much related. That was the connection I was going to point out too. The idea of very much a pregnancy related item in the
hmm
room, and that may have. Did you have the sense the radio was playing the whole time, or it you only became aware of it after observing what are these balloon things?
Um, Not sure. Not sure. I
Fair
think it's
enough.
like my attention. I think my attention shifts. My attention's on the balloon things, and then I'm analyzing the
Yeah,
radio or the TV or
I'm
whatever
in the
that's
room. I
playing.
see the desk. I'm brought the food. I see the things. Oh, I hear the radio. So it's kind of
Mm,
sequence of events there, and that might have
yeah,
suggested it too. Of like, there's something about these being poorly executed for
mm,
purpose. The condoms, but then the natural connection is the idea of, well, condoms are meant to prevent pregnancy, and so but then also the idea of like a state propaganda style. You could even imagine accurate facts being communicated in a way that you would expect state propaganda to sound.
sure.
If you
Ooh,
know what I
sure.
mean, it's
Yeah.
almost like you've got the DMZ on in Korea and whatnot, and they're broadcasting things, and it's a
It's
style of
not.
speech and a tinny quality of the speaker.
But it's a sterile institutional sort of way of presenting it.
Yeah, and you didn't have a
Yeah,
sense that the facts were good or bad,
false.
right or
Yeah,
wrong,
no,
or
no, I
accurate
had
or
no sense. Yeah, I had no sense that they were lying or that I was being manipulated or anything like that. But I did get the sense that I was being fed state propaganda.
yeah, yeah, for
um,
sure.
which I guess has some element of lying. I guess.
Yeah,
I
that's what I was
mean,
getting
just
to as
using that
well. Is
terminology.
wanted to tease out a little bit of whether it was meant to be. Well, it sounded like in the style of versus it
Yes,
sounded like also the content was a little
I
sus.
would say maybe more in the style of, but it wasn't like I was thinking about what was being said and being like, "That's not true."
Yeah,
I don't recall that at
just
all.
be a gut
I think that
impression of like, oh, this
it
stuff.
was
I know
just
what this is.
the although I don't have any details of what was being said, but it was just like giving percentages. They were talking about like this many pregnancies, this and this many, this results in this many pregnancies, sort of like they were given statistics is what they were doing. Um,
Okay,
about pregnancy, different kinds of statistics is what was happening.
interesting. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Um,
But it was relatively dry, and I was just like, why is these things happening?
for sure. And
What
then you just
what
kind
are
of
these things?
finished eating on your own. You're like, all right, I guess I'm here to get this done. And
That
um,
I'm out of here.
get out of
Yeah.
here. Yeah, yeah. Don't want to sit here any longer than I have to. Um,
Mhm.
any memory of transitioning out of that space, getting up from the table, walking out of the room, or just kind of
um
scene
Not.
change?
No, no, I'm aware that I am moving. I move back to the other area with the table, but I don't have any details of that movement.
Okay, fair enough.
It's not. I wouldn't say that it's a scene change, though. I mean, it's like a mini scene change, but it's not like a cut scene where it's just I'm like
Yeah,
jumping somewhere else.
more
I
like
think
a,
that I am.
a tracking shot following you down the hall to wherever it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
I am aware that I get up and I'm moving back to the other table.
Fair enough. And this was this time. So you were, if we remember, you were led to this place by someone who told you this is where you were supposed to be,
Right.
and you were fed stuff you didn't particularly ask for. You don't remember ordering it.
I don't remember
Yeah,
ordering.
yeah. And there's this,
Mm,
it's a very sterile setting, and but then you, by your own choice, choose to go a different direction. Like, well, I'm going to go back to this other place where I really want to be, or whatever the
mm.
motive. Do you remember a motivation?
Um, I think I'm just trying to like reunite with the party that I came with. Just trying to like go find my family again, you know?
Gotcha. And interesting that you didn't think of that as you were led to this other place. Like, this is where you're supposed to be.
Right.
Leave immediately. Yeah. Something
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
going where you were told to be
Mm,
and just kind of accepting it. And then other
mm,
icons of that you experienced in that space. But this now, almost like the getting out of the car thing of like reasserting your own control. Like, where I really want to be is with my family. I'm going back to find them. And now one of the the person Link from the mythology show
good so it's good, it's called Good Mythical Morning, but it has nothing to do with mythology.
yeah, I couldn't remember the mythical
Okay.
the name of the show, sorry. And now he's sitting at the table with your parents.
Yes.
And
And
I think my dog's outside. He'll be okay, it's not that hot yet.
yeah, so he's eating with my
Broke train of
parents.
thought, sorry.
So
So he's got his
so I
own
get back.
he isn't just
Table.
hanging out, he's got his own plate and he's having
Yeah.
a meal with them.
Yeah. And he thinks it's fun. He's like laughing. He thinks it's funny. And so I'm like, you know, like my parents, I was like, I was like, you know, that nobody knows who you are here. Like what is going on? And he thinks that it's funny that they don't know who he is. And then the three people that I sat with accidentally, they also want to sit next to my parents now. And they're upset. They're upset that Link is sitting in the chair that apparently they want to sit in. Excuse me.
Okay, this is, and all of this happens like, bam, you decide to go back to where you find the place where your family was, and now this other person that before was just a feature in the background, an odd occurrence, now they're actually at the table with your parents. Whatever that energy was, whatever that icon represents, is now with your parents, and they don't get the joke. They don't know why he thinks it's funny because they don't know who he is, and they don't know that this is entirely consistent for him.
My parents don't seem to be they're not weirded out by this at all. Like it's just like no big deal. So like it's like he's just part of the table. Everyone's cool with it. But they're not aware that he's like a YouTuber or again, I don't know how famous he actually is, but like a famous YouTuber.
Fair enough. No, but also the idea of that they don't know him. I mean, in your dream, it could have been like, oh, they always knew him, but no, it's specifically they don't know who he is, and he thinks that's funny. But they're welcoming anyway. They're like, we'll just talk to. Seems like a nice guy. Maybe we'll talk to him. So they're generously inclusive of whatever this energy is at the table.
There's also like it's not just my parents. It's not just my two parents sitting down at a table for two. This is like a group table that's there.
Yeah,
that they're sitting at as a part of the rest of the group. Although I have no awareness of the rest of the group, just of my parents. Yeah. So there's other people eating at the table as well.
Generally with the group that you walked in with. So it's put you back in that setting. And then the people you accidentally sat with came over and they were unhappy that he was there.
Yeah, because they want to sit there.
Yeah. They want to be included in the group. So whatever they represent, they were welcoming of you when you sat with them. And they found you charming and humorous when you excused yourself going, "Whoa, my bad." There's something in there about that dynamics of that. There's almost a competition in my mind, but not exactly. It's not the right way to put it. But like, if you were able to be that charming person, but someone who's better at it is at the table. And not only that, he's charming your parents and they don't even know who he is. So these other people that found you interesting, humorous, charming in whatever way, they're objecting to his presence almost on your behalf of like, hey, Roro's here. You don't belong here. Get out of here. This is his table.
Well, so it wasn't quite like that. They were upset that they were
almost.
So I wouldn't say it was quite like this, but I do see some comparison there. It was more like that they also wanted to sit at the table with my parents, and he's taking up the seat.
Gotcha. So it's less about you, more about them. Gotcha.
Or just but I do see the parallel there where I sat with them and I didn't know them, but then I excused myself, but he sat with my family and didn't excuse himself.
So he never actually got up and left. He stayed.
No.
He didn't leave.
Yeah, he was just like eating. He was just eating, and he just like thinks it's real funny.
Like, I'm just here doing me. How did the people that were upset at him respond? Were they just?
I have no details on that. I just get the sense that
they wanted him.
That they're not happy. Mm.
Okay. When that was pretty much the end of the scene, did you end up sitting down, or was room made?
Yeah, that's it. That's just the end of the scene. Okay. Is them kind of being annoyed or unhappy.
Fair enough. Very interesting. Like coming and going, lots of different little areas. And then, bam, either another completely separate dream or just a scene change, which happens all the time. Now you're watching a cooking show from where?
Or the cooking show detail, I don't know that I'm watching a cooking show because I'm not like seeing myself watching anything. I'm not like watching a TV. I'm just seeing this happen. So I'm just seeing this piece of chicken that's shaped like a loaf of bread.
Okay.
But like it feels like I get the sense that this is a cooking show that I am observing. And the person that there is some sort of narrator, and there is like a hands that are like patting this down with the seasoning, with the everything bagel seasoning. But they aren't even a super important part of the story either. I don't see who they are. I just like see this piece of chicken being prepared.
Okay. So very much it wasn't you're sitting in your living room watching literally Rachel Ray on the TV set and she's doing a thing. You're actually kind of present in.
Yeah, I'm there. And it's very high detail, very high resolution. So like my entire field of vision is being taken up by this loaf of raw chicken. Gotcha. Yeah, where I can see like the little bits of like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a high resolution thing, image of something like cooking, where you can see like the little bits starting to turn brown, and like, so I'm seeing this very high resolution image.
I have seen some of that. So that, but that's interesting. So there's no specific indicator that you're just watching a zoomed in screen, which is one way to observe those things. Is how we do it. Almost as that's how I'm describing there. You're present in this space, but your field of vision is very much zoomed in. So basically it's like, don't worry about how or why you're here necessarily. Look at the thing, look at the process that's happening, zoom in on that. That's the only thing that really is relevant. And
it's interesting that this part of the dream seems, I mean, it is food. It's related to the restaurant because it's food, but it seems the most disconnected from everything that's happened so far.
It's definitely process analysis of some kinds. Like you have safety of crossing the bridge, fitting into social situations, analyzing. Now it's something as simple in a way, but also its own kind of complexity of cooking for proper outcome. Taste. There's a lot of process analysis going on. That may not be the best way to put it, but but we're watching a cooking show, teaching to cook, that kind of thing. So sometimes I've done like roast turkey breast, and you cook it in the oven, and you pull it out, and you let it cool a little bit, and you can actually slice it like a bread loaf. Is that kind of how it was, or no? It was actually like it's more an interesting combination.
It's more like a baguette almost, but not quite as long as a baguette. But it is, so even though it's raw chicken, it has the texture kind of like a cooked loaf, and like an artisanal like Tuscan loaf of bread. Does that conjure images in your mind?
A little bit, but that's an interesting conflation because I see raw chicken and I'm like, does not look like bread. After it was cooked, you could maybe cut it into wedges or slices,
but it's not like that. Yeah, this is not like that. It's like this sort of oval shaped piece of like bread, but it's not actually bread. It's raw chicken. Yeah,
very interesting. And it wasn't a chicken loaf like they processed it like Spam.
No, not that I'm. No, I don't.
Connection. So. And then they're talking about putting like everything bagel dry rub on it. And they pat it on there.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know everything, but it's got like sesame seeds and like all those little tiny bits of different things on there. I don't know what everything bagel seasoning is, like little bits of dry garlic and stuff. Poppy seeds, I think, are on there. and they're
Yeah.
putting that all over the chicken.
And
And
it's got-
you can tell that it's raw chicken by the way that it moves. So it's got like a texture of bread. Now you buy like a more fancy loaf of bread, and it's got like what after it's cooked, it's got those like crust lines on the top, kind of. You know what I'm
for
talking
sure.
about?
Yeah.
So it's got that, even though it's raw chicken. But then when they're patting it down with the seasoning, it like jiggles like raw chicken.
Okay.
And so that's how I know that it's raw chicken. And it seems to be somehow, even though it's still in the loaf shape, I am aware that it has been sliced.
Yeah.
So
that is definitely one of the most interesting combinations I've heard of in a dream of like, it's like a loaf of bread, but it's made of chicken, but it's not mashed chicken. Yeah. It's the sliced
not mashed chicken.
Very weird. And it may be, this entire last little bit might be like, what the hell is this? But I did just want to talk to you. You mentioned the word swelt. You have to let it swelt. And there is actually, I mean, we think of the heat as sweltering. So there is some kind of a word that actually does exist.
So I think it was like, I never Googled it. Oh,
synonym for cooking.
Die, perish, faint, swoon, to become oppressed by heat, to swelter, to suffocate.
Yeah.
But I think it was more like you have to. I think you need to let something sweat. Where you'll put like salt on things. I think to cause them to sweat. So I think that was the idea.
Yeah.
Is we're supposed to be like packing these seasonings on, and then it's supposed to be like extracting the moisture from our chicken loaf.
Oh yeah, and then you watch it cook, and then for some unknown reason, only half of it actually cooks.
Only half of it cooks.
It's like a magical, impossible. I mean, not that things in dreams aren't all magical, impossible.
Yeah.
But some things are very. You cook your chicken, it comes out cooked. This is like very specifically your brain saying, "Imagine only half."
Yeah. Like no,
being cooked.
If this dream isn't weird enough, imagine a loaf of bread, but it's made of raw chicken. And get this, only half of it cooks. But even in my dream, as I'm observing this, I'm like, what is that? Why is that happening? How did they? And I observe it cook before my eyes, so it's like a time lapse. I'm like high resolution time lapse of this thing cooking, but only half of it cooks. And I'm like, why? Why is it? How did they get that to happen? Why is it only half cooked?
I'm wondering if that might not be the point. The idea of showing you things that don't fit and a process that makes no sense. That might actually be exactly what's going on here. And you're getting these very strange form of it, but it was going to take some form to show you the idea. But it could have been like half of a house made of timber and brick and the other half made of banana cream pie. Like this doesn't make any sense because it's supposed to represent something that doesn't make sense, something impossible, a result, the skill to produce a result that is beyond your ability to understand how they even did that.
Yeah.
Maybe
so I'm like, why?
Maybe something.
Why? Also that everything bagel seasoning is kind of odd because you don't put that on chicken, and you don't put it on bread either. Right, it's pretty exclusively for bagels, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I've ever. I mean, there's sesame chicken, but like not to that degree. I've never heard of that. Now I want to try it though. Now I want to go make a bunch of chicken and put that on. Let's see what happens.
Well, you can buy pre-mix everything bagel seasoning. So
yeah, I mean, I've never tried it before, so maybe that would actually be really good. But it almost seems to me like it's more an idea of. Imagine watching something do something that you just don't understand how it's done, and you don't understand why they're making those choices.
It's done, why it's done.
It seems the general confusion is maybe more important than the specific process. But that brings us to the end. That took a while. Sorry, I'm keeping you all day here, but hopefully it was interesting to get there. Now that's technically step 2. And before I go any further, I mean, we've made a lot of little connections along the way, but I'd like to just say, now that we've looked at it, really detailed, did things fall into place for you? Did you have connections where you're like, here's what makes sense to me? I try not to jump over that process when, if you have ideas, they're probably better than mine. So
no. So it's interesting because when I sort of analyze things on my own, I kind of think about like, well, what happened during the day that is like causing my brain to think about this. So I'm like, there was a picture that was shared of my uncle, and so that's why he's appearing in my dream. Or like I swiped on a YouTube Shorts video that had Lincoln Rhett in it, and so that's why they're in my dream.
Yeah.
But what I haven't thought about is like there's like more like you're like, oh well, your grandmother was there, and so she's giving you this like sensible, reasonable, rational, so I forget the words that you use, but this like rational solution
Practical,
and
pragmatic.
yes, pragmatic. And so there's like this older person in your family that's giving you this pragmatic solution. Those are not thoughts I've ever considered to think about.
Very cool.
But I feel like it makes sense though. I think it does make sense. And the same thing where this like there's this like car, but it's like a family bubble thing that's happening or whatever. I didn't quite think about
relationships and
I didn't think about things
nested.
I didn't think about things like that, and how the first half of it is definitely about my family, and then the second half we have these like foreign or people outside of my family being introduced into this, and so that's it's interesting. I haven't thought about it like that.
For sure, yeah. And then the idea of so I didn't mean to cut you off if you have more to say, but it seemed like you were winding down.
So that there's definitely some things that you were saying that they're not things that enter my mind when I think of when I think about my own dreams. But I do think that there might be something there. I think that's interesting. Mm-hmm.
It's good to get that kind of second view, look in from the outside type of thing. Like I think people can do this with themselves. I think it's infinitely easier with a sounding board, someone to make suggestions and have alternative connections that maybe you wouldn't naturally think of on your own. But I think people can do it independently. So other than the things I've already kind of pointed you towards, and I don't have any like grand answer I'm trying to dole out or tease, but once I get to this point, we've had all these thoughts and shared these perspectives. Then a lot of times I want to look at what was going on in your life at the time. And I usually wait until this point to then start looking at that and see if any of the things we mentioned line up with your experiences. Just in general, are you away from home going to school? Like you're in a different town from your family?
Yeah.
That's something that I probably would have, if I had to place a bet, I would have said, yeah. So when you think of that in relation to the dream, anything come to mind or?
No, but I get that. I feel like so something I wanted to add really quickly before I go there is that earlier I did feel a bit emotional, which I was kind of surprised by because there was no emotions in this dream. Like I don't remember feeling intense emotions during the dream. But when we were talking about my family and the bubble and my grandmother and stuff, I felt like some emotions, which I feel like those are kind of curious to me. Like why was I feeling emotions?
For sure.
Do
you I want to describe them at all, or you don't have to? It might be too personal.
Yeah. No. I don't know how to describe them, but just like I felt a little emotional.
There's kind of a thing. It's like I don't know. I felt a kind of certain way about a thing.
Like, yeah. I just felt like a I don't know. Just like just emotional. I don't know.
Sure,
but it was just a little bit. But
a nostalgia type of feeling, or an ache of missing something you're fond of.
I don't think so. No, not like that. I guess I'm not very good at describing emotions.
It's okay. Most people's emotional vocabulary is relatively low. There's like thousands of words for emotions.
That's probably for me.
But in terms of
I would say
the big
emotional,
the big four: mad, bad, sad, and glad. I mean,
glad. I would say glad in the context of some sort of meaning or purpose or something.
Gotcha. I don't know.
I don't know.
It just jumped to mind the idea of grateful for people that cared enough to share wisdom with you.
Yes.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. Something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't know what that's called either. That's the best I can do.
Something like
there's an emotion of gratefulness. Yeah. Like, they cared. That means something to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as far as the overarching story in my life right now, I didn't make a connection with that about leaving for school, but I guess that could be. I feel like the overarching thing here would be like my leaving of religion
Oh,
and
very well
leaving my
could be. Yeah.
religious community, which was quite a journey to go on. And because there was the church, like I did get the feeling that people in the group of my church, and I'm leaving them. I'm not sure how it all worked together. Like, why was I in this sterile hospital room?
Yeah.
And why would I be like going back to sit with them? Because that's not something that's like part of my story at all.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah.
maybe something about like that sort of journey. There's this long road that we're on, or just like leaving my religion, and or just like the trajectory of my life, where I come from this very authoritarian religion. I grew up in an authoritarian religious environment as a child,
Gotcha.
involving, my family is involved in that.
Yeah.
And I've transitioned, making my own decisions and making my own way. And so maybe a little bit of elements of that mixed in somewhere.
I think so too. It makes sense a little bit with the imagery on the bridge of like you're in a car with your family and you're being driven
Too
by,
fast.
or to get too fast and by an
Yeah.
unknown person.
Unknown person. Yeah.
Yeah,
All of that
or
has that vibe to it.
not even a person. Just the idea that the car is traveling and you are in it and you are being
Mhm.
taken in a direction, you and your family all together.
That I don't feel comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah, that you're looking at,
Yeah.
this is not safe maybe for me, or this is not good for me, or it might have a negative result.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of things that are involved with breaking away from communities for spiritual, ideological, political reasons. I mean, you lose you lose a lot of things as a sacrifice to gaining other things. So you have to,
Sure.
you leave your house
Double-edged sword.
when you turn 18 or 20 or whatever, and you leave the house and you're giving up the safety and the comfort and the community there, but you got to go out on your own and do your own thing and be your own man and make your own way, make your own mistakes, take your own responsibility. But you look back, we all look back on that and go, it's things were simpler then, or nicer in some ways, or God, I had less problems. Parents took care
Yeah.
of it all. Not to relate it specifically to childhood, but that analogy to the forging your own path. It might be a lot of this type of stuff might have been on your mind lately of, well, what does it mean to choose to get out of a situation I was not comfortable with? It gave me a lot of anxiety that I didn't feel was expressing who I was, wasn't what I believed. And that could have been the whole beginning with the family, travel and the bridge and trying to get somewhere. It might even have been you imagining the threat to your family relationship in taking this journey to the far side of who knows what over a bridge that's, I mean, leaving comfortable, familiar surroundings is threatening in a way that could be made in the icon of a rickety bridge of like, I don't even know if I'm going to survive crossing this. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should stay with what I know and don't take the risk. Something along those lines. But then it
Yeah.
also, so if we go kind of the arc across some of that, you've got this initial asserting yourself, breaking away, recognizing a situation maybe isn't good for you, maybe even thinking it isn't good for your family, but you're not there to tell them what to do. You're just going to get out of the car, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but still the desire to stay connected with family of like, oh, we're going to go out together as a community to go to dinner. There's good parts you gave up in pursuing maybe your schooling, a more clinical, rational, scientific perspective on the world. Which is kind of that there's something very sterile about pure science absent this fuzzy, warm community spirituality that if you got to give that up and all those comforting things that I just don't believe anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think. I talked a lot. So
Yeah. No, I mean, no, it's, there's definitely, there's truth to that. I didn't get those feelings when I was in the dream though.
fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe is there some truth to just like being an adult is kind of like that. Like being an adult is harsher. Reality is harsher.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's like problems and questions and confusing things that are happening that you have to deal with that you don't have to deal with when you're a child at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess you can see parallels with those sorts of things for sure.
But this is also not your first rodeo, going to school away from home, technically. I mean, you've already kind of been through that before. And then,
I've never left for school. This is my first time.
okay, so this is a
Yeah.
new kind of experience. You actually have
Yeah.
left, so you were kind of hometown schooled, close to family, lots of extended support structure all around you, church community and whatnot.
It's complicated, but yes,
Fair enough.
something
Yeah,
like that.
not too much detail, but not to pry. But okay, so that is interesting. That it is now a different experience. You've actually removed yourself in a way. I think there is something related to. I mean, you've definitely got a school desk looking place in there that they're feeding you a meal that isn't meant to be tasty in a way. It isn't meant to be a visual feast. It's not that kind of an experience. It's a nutrition. And I was getting thoughts in my head about the idea of, psychology being, cold, clinical, and as much as the medical side of things, it demystifies a lot of the things that might make us feel a sense of awe and wonder about the world because we don't know how it works. And so there's something about that. But then also the idea of, psychological or practitioner boundaries being, firmly drawn around and environments that are functional versus aesthetic. And that idea of a school desk and the nature of the meal. I'm not sure where to fit in the weird condoms and the state propaganda that may lead into some of your.
What I'm wondering is, was I having some sort of like low level wet dream that was happening, and I'm having like anxiety because one of the things I thought was the girl that I sat with, I thought that she was cute, and that was part of the reason why I sat with them.
I forgot to mention that at all. Yeah. And that
but I sat at the wrong table.
Lead to you leaving and then getting into this other environment where icons of
and I'm being like lectured about pregnancy and and my religion is very controlling and anti-sex and stuff too. So, or former religion, but so I feel like those could be related
in your head. Everything you've ever learned, and it's gonna
for sure.
It's gonna give you your mind may have distorted condoms in a sense that made them clownish, if that makes sense. It's like they're here, but this is not a good answer. I don't know if that's making sense to you of like, and then, the purpose of that is, and that's all related to with the idea of social relationships, ideally at some point, maybe a primary social relationship that results in, intimacy of some kind, which you got to balance. What are the boundaries on that? How do I engage sexually related to where I've come from? How much of that do I still believe? How much do I think might be good advice, even if I don't take it all lump sum? I don't want to make a mistake going forward. Sure, condoms are a thing, but maybe then that orange, I don't like that safety cone warning. You said that didn't resonate, but the idea of but it's this isn't the solution you think it is,
Yeah. I know that, I guess this kind of relates a little bit is, so like you were saying, being just like leaving home is different than being back home, and religion is more warm fuzzy and stuff. I think the other thing is that in the religion, as well as being a child, like life was simpler, a lot simpler.
Yeah,
a lot simpler. And so
you got pretty strict rules, and you just follow them, and you don't ask questions.
Yeah, and so there's
a lot easier. It is.
It's like a harsh it's a really sharp double-edged sword.
Oh, for sure.
And that part of me does wish to go back to a life that's just really simple, and you don't have to think about anything. There's no questions. There's no ambiguity. You're just told what to do. You're told how to dress. You're told like what sort of things you can watch on TV, and there's no question about what you're supposed to be doing with your time or anything, it's awful to live that way in some ways, but then it's also easier. It's also easier in some ways.
And sometimes there's two different kinds of people. There's all kinds of people, but there's some people who are very happy to have, just tell me what it is and I'll do that. I don't want to think about it. I'm comfortable being told what to do. And that's a valid way to go through certain ways of life. You just rely on someone who knows more, and I'll do it that way. And then there's some of us, I would say, who are a bit driven to question everything, and it gets us into trouble in terms of like, we got to give up. You got to move from that place of comfort to get answers. You got to go look outside the safety of the village, etc., and brave the dragon of chaos in the wilderness, and hopefully you come back with the gold.
Absolutely.
There's some people who just can't live any other way. They're like, I wish I could. It's not me. It's not me.
Yeah.
Going
and I I certainly can't go back. Like I feel like I certainly can't go back to that.
Yeah.
but
Definitely where
but
you're at
it,
right now. This
yeah,
where you're at
but it
right now is
does
where you need to be. You can't go back right now. Now you may go back
it
in the future. You may not.
it
But
does feel like it was easier though, for sure.
yeah, no, that's a good thing to acknowledge too. Just to say that was the feeling I had about it at the time of like, well, this is harder. This is more difficult. This is more of a challenge. This requires more attention, more effort to make this way of living succeed. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Just means it's true.
Yeah.
I did want to say something about sometimes with a very rigid, I don't want to say repressive, it might be the right word, but there's a sense of opposites in that as well, of like there's this stuffy religious stricture tenets, and then there's the goofy internet guy that's the almost like a life of the party. We're just here to be silly, we don't, whatever, we're not taking anything too seriously. There's very much a polar
Difference
opposites on
there.
there too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And the idea that there was something, and it's not envy on your part. That's the wrong way to put it, but it's an aspirational part of you that you would like to be maybe as life of the party, charming and well loved for skill in that regard as these guys. You wish you could crack jokes as well as they do and entertain people and be loved and welcome at a table, welcomed by your parents at the table. And that's where we were going a little bit with that idea of this group that found you charming was unhappy this guy was in your seat, or where they wanted to be,
Yeah.
whatever they represented wanted to be closer to your parents than he was. I don't know, I think I had a point there, I might have already made it, but I don't know if anything comes to mind.
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems to make sense. Yeah, it seems to make sense.
And there's something in there about being successful in the world too, of like if you could achieve recognition the way they have, that would be and there's a what am I trying to say, there's a aspiration of like achieving that level of being yourself, whatever that means to you, as represented by that interaction with the folks you sat with, but being able to merge that with your old life as represented by your parents in a way of saying, if I could just be fully me and accepted at home, really that's all the conflict is here, is the conflict in values between the way I think I need to live my life and what the people I care about and want the approval of are willing to accept as a good way of living.
Like the people I sat with by accident at first are my new life. Yeah.
Could be. Yeah. Or they could represent the aspiration to find a new life in that sense, as represented by a new group of friends, a new core social system type of thing. Yeah. And if we go along those lines of this journey, now I'm getting some ideas of this impossible loaf of chicken. It is neither chicken nor loaf. It is cooked and not cooked at the same time.
And half cooked.
Impossible combination of things. Well, so you're telling yourself, if only I could solve these problems, but fuck if I know how to make that happen. I'm not good enough to cook this chicken that is half a chicken and not a chicken at the same time. I don't know if all that kind of makes sense fitting together.
Yeah, no, I think it does. I wonder though how much for dream interpretations, how different or similar would you say this is to like reading someone's tarot cards, or like because we're looking at my things and I'm like, this all makes sense to me. Like I feel like, yeah, this fits really well. But like, is it the purpose of the dream to tell us stories? Is it the purpose of the dream to teach us things? I mean, maybe not evolutionarily, but like, I don't know, just something I'm thinking about.
No, well, I would say those are probably two separate ideas and both very good questions. So there is and is not, there's a Venn diagram with tarot and dream interpretation, and tarot's a little more prognosticating. It's a little more spooky woo. And I don't mean to say that derogatorily. It's stuff I don't believe that's supposed to tap into spiritual, supernatural stuff, that the shuffling of the cards is meant to be influenced by the person who's there for the reading, and the order ends up being meaningful to them. Now you can do a lot with the symbology of tarot and say, you know, the cups and the kings and the hanging man and death doesn't always mean death, means change. You can usually find some way those are related, but I think that takes a little more storytelling in a way that I wouldn't be capable of. Which sounds strange because I'm putting together stories for real. Really, it's your story. I'm just trying to figure out what it means. So I think it is also distinctly different because there's and I don't mean to interrupt, just to finish my thought.
No, go ahead.
But with the dream interpretation thing, it's like you asked, part two was you asked if there was a purpose behind it. I don't think there is in the spooky woo sense. Is that a cat? Oh my goodness.
That's a small dog.
Yes, it is. I couldn't see too well. I got cats and small dogs all over the place. Oh, what a cutie pie. You got a little black one. I got a little white one sleeping. Oh no, he's outside. Yeah. This is the first time he hasn't been in an episode because he's chilling outside.
I can get her to come over here
if you want to. Oh, you're a pretty girl. Look at that face. Yeah. This is going to be the screenshot for the episode.
All right. This is Yuki. This is Yuki.
What was the name again? Sorry.
Oh, her name is Yuki.
Yuki. Guy, I wanted to make sure I heard it right because I was laughing myself. Look at that bobblehead. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was debating if she's ready for a haircut or not because she went swimming today. And the hair, her wet hair was just completely.
We just had our mop top peanut butter, little Maltese. He just had his one eye completely crusted shut because he sweats these little dark tears that stain his fur.
Eye booger things.
Eye boogers, and I was just praying to whatever powers that be as my wife's holding his head and she's right next to his eyeball, and I'm like, oh my God. But everything turned out okay. Peanut's fine, and you can see again. It's just freaking me out. I'm like, I couldn't do that. I don't know how she does it. She's got skills, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, she doesn't have a problem with that, I don't think. Yeah. But she does get some eye boogers, and she does not like me cleaning them because they get all stuck in her fur.
Oh yeah, there's no fun. I know the hot rag and whatnot, but this was like literally clippers, hair cutting clippers right over the eyeball. It just works. It just freaked me out. Like that's my anxiety level. My wife knew what she was doing.
Yeah. I cut her hair myself. I do it myself.
Right? You got skills, I don't, and like a steady hand.
Other people say that too, that they would have anxiety because even her eyelashes keep growing. Yeah. And so I got to cut her eyelashes.
It's what you got to do. No, I was always terrible at that game. Operation. I do not have a steady hand. That's not my skill. My skill is being loosey goosey and floating with. I'm a leaf on the wind is more my thing.
Yeah, I'm not good at it. I just do it.
Right there.
And she's not. She hasn't been seriously maimed.
Yeah,
she's still alive.
Sometimes that's a very powerful lesson too. Is sometimes we are capable of more than we think, and just give it a try. Hey, you do it badly.
Doesn't have to be perfect.
Do it better next time, right? Nobody got hurt. Yeah, this one's name is Baby, and when she decides it's loving time, she's gonna turn off our episode. I swear. I had a point. I was trying to finish before I forget.
Sorry.
Is there a purpose in dreams? And I said no in the spooky woo sense.
Yeah.
There is and there isn't. It's like there is a communication. There is something of value there. There is no, to my understanding, no intent behind it. It's not like there is a separate entity within us called the subconscious, which is screaming at us desperately to have our consciousness understand specific things. I think, as I've put it in other episodes, the heart beats, the lungs breathe, the brain thinks, and it thinks whether we're all three of those function, whether we are conscious or not. So in sleep, the brain just keeps thinking, and it's very often related to recent experiences, or at the very least, recent experiences that trigger iconic representations of traumatic or impactful past experiences. Yeah. And a lot of times, almost without fail, we can get some kind of a storyline that actually relates to what's been on your mind lately, some unique experiences. And I think you're very, very correct when you say that. Why those particular YouTubers? Because that's a recent video you saw. So there is a random element to it. If you'd seen, anyone else, it could have been them instead. It's just they were a convenient filler for that portion of the dream.
Right. Or something else would have just maybe filled its place with something else like that. So I think I agree. I think I agree with what you just said.
Well, thank you. I could be completely wrong, but
no, I think I don't know that much about sleep or dream, despite being a psychology student. I don't know that much about sleep or dreams. But what you said makes sense to me. What would you say, even though there's no intent behind the dream, where it's not like maybe not our subconscious trying to like scream out and tell us things? What do you think that we can gain from doing some sort of analysis like this?
I think it's a better understanding of our own experience and thought process. Like if you can kind of nail down what's on my mind when the rest of the world is shut off. What did I think was important enough to review, to imagine happening, and I think that's why it's entirely possible you had literally 500 other dreams that same night, maybe in between these other ones. But in my experience, my estimation, dreams self-select for importance. You don't remember it, probably wasn't that important. But if it sticks with you, you feel it when you get up, you're like, what the hell was that? And those dreams are like, yeah, that was probably important enough that you were intensely focused on, left an impression on you. So if you don't remember, like me, I happen to think, so practically physically, I don't remember my dreams hardly ever. I've got literally a handful.
Yeah, same.
The dream from when I was a kid, the couple in college, and maybe one more. And then the fifth one I've already forgotten. I used to have 5 I could think of. I had a point there. Damn it. No, handful of dreams. Oh, we're always dreaming, but most of them are just not that important. So my working theory is that there are some of us who think constantly. The wheels are never stop turning. We analyze everything from every possible angle. There isn't a lot left over to think about in our sleep. We've already thought about it all when we were awake, so we just shut down. Maybe that's why so I'm probably almost definitely having dreams all the time, every night. I think we all do, because your brain just keeps thinking, but just nothing stands out because I've already thought about it during the daytime. That's my theory.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hell if I know.
No, I feel like it sounds reasonable to me. What I will say is that a lot of my dreams, I feel like, have a similar thread. The ones that I remember is like this traumatic experience of leaving religion. And so some of them are like more directly related, where I'm at church and someone's trying to snipe me.
Sure.
I have a dream like that I had. And then some of them are which I didn't make as much of a connection until you had your interpretation. But I do think that there might be some similarities. My experience there might be relevant to this dream as well, or this dream might be relevant to those experiences still.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of them are similar threads, where it's family and my traumatic religious experience.
Yeah, and they will probably keep happening until you find in yourself or in your life the balance you're looking for, until you come to a resolution, basically. Long story short, just another quick story on the same topic, not even a story, but recurring dreams in general, especially the exact same dream in various iterations. Small details change, but it's always the alleyway, it's always the guy, it's always the slip and fall, and they're on top of you every night, the same thing. Whatever that represents is unresolved. So what makes it go away? You understand why it's happening, what it's related to, what it means to you, and you make some connection in your mind, number one, but also maybe modify your approach to something in the real world. And the need for the dream to keep coming back to saying, you haven't fixed this, you haven't fixed this, you haven't fixed this, goes away. And so I've actually had some success like that with folks where like, I don't have those dreams anymore, or the nature of the recurring dream changed and now it's more positive. And I'm starting to feel like it's not a threat anymore. I have a little more control than I thought I did, that kind of a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that like was Freud's perspective on it too? I don't know anything about his perspective on dreams. I don't know that they're into it, but
broad strokes, I think both Freud and Jung, they had their differences and they were contemporaries and they were friends, and then they had a split. And
wasn't Jung Freud's like protege?
I can't remember which way that went, but I think so.
Yeah, I think
they were kind of slightly younger one than the other, but contemporaries.
I think Jung is, I think, slightly younger than Freud, and Freud thought that he was going to
almost came up together, and he might have been trying to pass on his knowledge to him.
Yeah,
Jung said,
I think
I've
that's
got my own ideas, and Freud was like, traitor.
but they're based on Freud still, though, I think.
Yes, no, a tremendous, like Venn diagram style, tremendous amount of overlap. I think they would both say the same thing: is that it's a useful look inside, and I think a lot of what I do. It's funny with Freud, man. People give him the they give him the business for a lot of stuff, but what they forget is how foundational he is to everything we do. The idea of sitting down and talking to a patient and asking them, "How are you feeling? How's your relationship with your mother?" It's all Freud. It's all Freud. And yes, sometimes he saw cigars when it was just a cigar, but or penis when it was just a cigar. But um, yeah, I think they would both say the same thing: is that if it's a window into what you're thinking on the inside and things that are they gave different reasons for why things would be hidden or unobserved, and Freud attached more purposeful suppression than Jung did, I think. Although Jung acknowledged that the shadow is difficult to look at because it's painful. So a lot of their ideas are very similar. I don't think they had as much to argue about as they thought they did. I think they both got. I think they probably had a absinthe fueled argument one night and just held on to that anger and then started bad mouthing each other in public. And it was like, it was over. That's couldn't bounce back from that and hold their honor. I don't know if I ever get to if there is a type of afterlife where they're both hanging out and be like, dudes, tell me the story. What's up? How did it really happen? That would be amazing.
Have some heavenly absinthe with them.
Right, exactly. I just made that up. I don't know if either one of them did absinthe, but or at least
time period, I think,
was a fan of cocaine, right?
Yeah.
That was another Elon tweet. I'm bringing the coke back in cocaine. That's hilarious.
That was funny. So I feel like this is really interesting. Absolutely.
Good deal. Well, didn't you feel like you've gotten a sufficient number of things to think about, even if it wasn't maybe solution to everything?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't personally think all too much about this dream because I knew I was going to talk about it. So I just wanted to make sure I had it all like saved. That's why I recorded it, and I haven't really thought about a whole lot since because I was going to have this discussion.
That's actually perfect. That's kind of how I approach these things too. Like, don't tell me your dream before we get here right now doing the thing. Otherwise, I'm going to overthink it. And I want to give you honest, immediate connections and go from there. So, yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah, no, I think it was very interesting. This is cool. I'll have to next time I have a dream, I'll record it.
Yeah, I'll have you back. It's fine. I try to have new people all the time. I'm not getting as many new people as I have been in the past. So I'll probably double up anytime soon.
Sure.
Content's content. Got to try and stay consistent with the publishing.
I know I've had some really bizarre dreams in the past. Like I had one where I was younger. I was probably maybe in my early 20s or maybe late teens. And in my dream, I had a machine, and this machine was like producing an egg, and the egg would roll down, and there'd be like this like fuzzy turtle that would hatch out of it. Like, what's going on there?
That's great. It's like Rube Goldberg Mousetrap style.
I've had one dream that was not reoccurring, but I think it was continuing. So I had a dream, and it continued into another dream. And very, very bizarre things happening in that dream. I was very young for that one. I was like younger than 10 probably. And but just very bizarre. It's very curious, the things that I think in my younger dreams, it's like cartoons that are influencing them.
For sure. I mean, that might have been my Wile E. Coyote thing. I mean, it was definitely yeah.
And so there's like these like snakes in my dream, but I think it's like the snake from like the Jungle Story. Jungle Story? No.
Jungle Book. The snake Ka, I think, or was
maybe that, or like Alice in Wonderland. Like there's like these like cartoon elements in my dreams that are like really bizarre and stuff, but which I don't have those anymore when I do have dreams.
Oh yeah,
but I think
that's amazing.
From my childhood,
how many of those idioms are relatively recent? Like we have idioms, or not idioms, but iconic representations that go back thousands of years. Different things that are common to the human condition. But then we've got things that are just a couple hundred years old, like Down the Rabbit Hole. Basically came from the whole Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland conception. As far as I know, that didn't come from anywhere else. That's like literally people started saying, "Oh, you're going down the rabbit hole," like Alice in the book.
Well, so in this childhood dream, there were these two purple snakes that had the Jungle Book snake vibe to them. I think Jungle Book, and my mother and grandmother got bitten.
Ooh.
And their face turned into like a Pac-Man face, where it had like this triangle face, like. And then they were like, "Don't worry, just talk like this." And they went like this.
Wow.
like with their lips. But like, why am I dreaming about them getting bitten by snakes? Like,
Yeah, and
what is with
transforms into like a
Pac-Man?
Pac-Man iconography. That's its own
And
interpretation
then
session.
I was like confused about it, and they're doing this thing with their lips, and I'm like, what? Who knows? Who knows what was
Wow.
going on?
It also makes me think
But
of like the Pac-Man thing is like the Langoliers that Stephen King, where moments in time go, they have to get eaten up by the thing
yes,
that
yeah,
makes it
yes, it was like that.
emptiness
It
again.
was like
Yeah,
that. It was
very
like that.
strange.
Um, but but it was very cool.
Well,
Very
dreams
cool
are
to have
just,
that.
I mean, I could do this all day, and basically I literally do, because when I'm not talking to people, I'm editing the books, but endlessly fascinating to my mind. It's just looking inside, being welcome inside people's head. I was talking to
Sure.
someone the other day who's like, "Oh, you do psychology? You reading me?" I'm like, "No, that's not how. Not any more than anybody else. I look at, is this person a threat? Are they friendly? I read everybody, but the idea of
Mm,
I was kind of trying to be reassuring to that person of like, going through training in psychology actually makes you less likely to be judgmental. You realize how
mm,
normal people are, what a wide variety of normal there is, and you don't look at people and go, "Oh, I got your number." You're like everybody else. We all got problems.
mm.
It's
Yeah, no, I agree.
that's
I
my
agree.
estimation. I mean, everyone should know out there is that you're less likely to be harshly, unfairly judged by psychologists, not the other way around.
Yeah.
That's an old trope from very authoritarian days of like 1950s, institutionalized. The
Oh yeah.
Mr. Doctor Authority,
Taking
take your
note,
nurse
taking
Ratchet
notes.
meds. Yeah,
Yeah, or I feel like I've had people say that to me as well. Even though I don't work with people, and but it's not like I have mystical abilities.
yeah.
I'm not like some, I don't know, but I feel like sometimes people do think that I have these like special abilities to interpret their
And
behavior.
it's reasonable too. And
But
I don't want to give them too much of a hard time because you're like, okay, this person has maybe some special knowledge. Maybe they know things I don't know. Maybe they,
yeah, that's true. If you don't know, you don't know.
yeah. And there, in a sense of it, there's almost like a suspicion of witchcraft in that metaphorical sense of
Oh yeah,
like,
no, I
is this
agree.
person casting a spell on me? Are they giving me the evil
Yeah,
eye? Are they, so there's a bit of that too.
yeah, no, I
Um,
understand that. I do
yeah.
understand it.
So I try to be reassuring when I can. Why not?
Yeah, yeah,
Smile at
absolutely.
people and laugh in a positive way and support it, laughing with.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, thank you so much for interpreting. So what do we call this? Do you call this dream analysis or dream interpretations?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah, I kind of call it dream interpretation, I guess.
Okay.
But it is an analysis. It is conversation. It's collaboration. Basically, what we do, I couldn't do it on my own. Some people have had saying, "Well, here's my dream," and they type it out and they send it to me. Like, I would have saved you the time. I can't. I gotta talk
Mm,
it out
mm,
because I need that feedback as we're going along.
sure.
So there is an interpretive element to it, which of course is kind of the broad strokes of it. But it's like we're both chiseling the same piece of marble to make a statue, but only you know what the
Mm,
statue is supposed to look like. And I just kind of go, what if we knock this section out? Is that going to get us closer to the shape? And you tell me yes or no, and then I don't touch it. If it's no, we go over here and do something else. So it's definitely one of those things I couldn't do on my own.
sure.
And I think most people have trouble doing on their own unless they've practiced. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
ask
think
me
so
a simple
too.
question. I'll give you a 5-minute Sorry. But yeah, no, if you feel good about it, we'll wrap it up. I'll let you go. This is actually a little bit longer than I expected to keep you. I hope it's no
No, that's
stress.
fine.
Okay.
That's good.
Looked like you enjoyed the process, so it's time well spent, huh?
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank
Good
you so
deal.
much.
Yeah, well then I'm just gonna say once again thank you to our friend Roro from Twitter at RyanDavidTuttle.com or at Tuttle Ryan David on Twitter. You can follow him and myself for some interesting conversations that don't usually make it into the show because that's different milieus. I'll use a fancy French word. Also for me, please like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, would you kindly? Always need more volunteer dreamers. T-shirt, coffee mug, 14 currently available books of historical dream literature. That's about it. I'll just say thanks for listening.